Hello, everyone, and welcome to Going Free. That's what we're going to be doing for the next however many minutes we are together, and I hope it and expect it to be an exciting and invigorating time together. There's a lot of news going on. We're going to be talking about a really constructive topic today. Of course, that is how to educate our children to choose white mates. It's so shocking to me. It never fails to amaze me when I hear white people talking about with this nervousness that you don't see in any other group of people about how do I tell my children to do the right thing. I don't understand it at all. Jews have no problem telling their children that they should only take fellow Jews. Blacks have no problem saying it, and of course white people will have no problem endorsing those positions. They'll have no problem saying, well, of course it's legitimate for a Jewish family to tell the Jewish children that they should marry within their own group of people. But the moment that you begin talking about whites telling their white children that they should marry within their own group to perpetuate themselves and what they create, perpetuate their history, their lineage, then they get all nervous about it. And of course, where does that come from? That comes from the meme pathogens that they are infected with, that are seated in their subconscious minds, that's telling them the entire time they're thinking these thoughts, that those are naughty thoughts, those are immoral thoughts, you shouldn't think those things. And that's why you see people get queasy about whether or not they should even be discussing these things. I imagine there'll be some who watch this either live or in replay that feel a little bit queasy themselves. They feel a little bit naughty. They're doing something risque, something immoral, by even contemplating telling white children that they should take white spouses. But of course, the reverse is the case. We have every right to do so. We must do so if we are going to perpetuate ourselves as a people, and more importantly, a very rapid way to identify an anti-white in your midst is to hear them say that it's somehow wrong for you to instruct your white children, or to instruct white children in general, on the love of our people, the pride in our accomplishments, the purpose that they fill in perpetuating what our ancestors have made and what our descendants will end up making, and certainly the admonition that they should marry within our own group and produce beautiful white babies. As soon as you hear a person of any race say that something is wrong with that, you know that you are speaking with a rabid and significantly mentally ill anti-white person. Now, it could be a white person suffering grievously from white noir, maybe a white brother or sister that could be saved, who could be taught how to go free, or it could be coming from someone who is an absolute anti-white monster, intends to inflict harm, and there is nothing that can be done for such people. So you have to keep your eyes open. You have to keep your wits about you. Ultimately, when you're confronted with someone who acts as though there is something immoral about this sort of topic, something immoral about teaching your children to be proud of who and what we are, and to perpetuate who and what we are, to take other whites as mates, and to produce beautiful, brilliant white children, when they act like you are doing something wrong by holding such a position, immediately just flip that conversation and say, would you feel it's so wrong? Would you be acting as though some sort of some transgression was occurring at the moment if we were talking about blacks doing this, or if we were talking about mestizos, or if we were talking about Jews doing this? No, we know that all of these so-called moralists, as they try to affect this moralism, that they're somehow superior to us. We know very well and good that they would support these groups taking such steps, even having private schools that do these sorts of things, having summer camps that do these sorts of things. They would endorse it and say that's their people and it's legitimate for them. So as soon as they begin to say to you that there's something illegitimate about you doing the exact same thing for our people, they have just told you everything you need to know about them. Their arguments that they make from that point forward are going to be pretexts to arrive at an anti-white conclusion, at a conclusion that inflicts harm on us, at pretexts that justify a double standard, so that it is okay for Jews, for blacks, for mestizos, for Asians, for Arabs to have all of this that celebrates their people, their accomplishments, their history, and perpetuates all that they have and are. and at the same time denies the same thing to you. That's all you need to know. Don't have any of those discussions with those people. You keep that conversation on why they are so damn anti-white. You keep that conversation on that. And I have to say, I'm going to be holding back a little bit today because there's been a lot of censorship, and a very dear friend of mine for a great many years. I've just received news. Thank you to Phoenix Fire. I think she is in the chat today. Let me just pan up. I see Philosophicat in the chat. Great to see you as always. Freedom Fighter. I think I saw Jilly Storm. I see Marsha. I see Johnny. Vampire. I see the great Spartan Warrior Queen is with us. Thank you so much for being here as well. Marsha said, hello, Jason. Yes, hello back to you. I see Andre. A lot of the great community. There's Laurel, always a great member of our community. It's just a scintillating centerpiece. It just virtually at every single broadcast that we make. Great to see you. So let me just pan up some. I think I saw Phoenix Fire. I believe she's here. I might be. Yeah, she's here. Good to see you, Phoenix Fire. She just notified me, sent me a link from the Amren website. And so what we're going to talk about first is we're going to talk about the censorship first, because this is directly affecting me. It's directly affecting Clarion, who is with us today. Of course, she has a Facebook group. And if you all have not heard, you're going to learn from her in a moment about what Facebook is doing, how they are, and this is very important, folks, when we talk about this. Everyone keeps saying that Facebook has banned white nationalism and banned white separatism. Stop using their language. Don't talk about nationalism. Don't say they banned white nationalism. Nobody knows exactly what that is. This is as a protean definition to that phrase as there could be. What matters here is that we view things from how they affect us and how they're going to resonate and sit with our audience. Facebook has banned the ability of white separatism. Facebook has banned whites getting together and living amongst themselves. That's what they have banned. They have banned white people from doing what they encourage and celebrate and will pay for with their dollars for every other race of people. They will allow black groups to get together and talk about starting their own communities. They have banned whites from starting our own communities. They have forbidden whites from starting our own communities. That identifies what is actually taking place relative to us as a people. That is what should matter to us. Their specific verbiage, let's not ever use their verbiage. Their verbiage is always established to give them the moral high ground and to make us look demonic. So that is how they're going to frame everything. And we need to go out of our way to not use their narrative, to not use the words of white oppression. So that is extremely important to your personal well-being, to how you view things, because if you continue to view things through the lens, this anti-white lens that they have given you to view the world, you are going to be no better off than the basic normie out there, the basic NPC out there. You need to see things much more clearly. You need to see things lucidly, and you do that by calling things the names that they actually are, by putting us at the center of our story. Facebook has banned whites coming together in our own community. They've banned Western kind from joining together in virtual and then in real communities. And you start the conversation, you have the conversation with your friends and family and strangers from that basis. You don't say they banned white nationalism. The average person out there in the world, your family member, whatever, when they hear white nationalism, they're thinking about this nonsense about some morbidly obese woman having a heart attack on a 95-degree day with 100% humidity, smoking cigarettes, and claiming then that even after her mother said on video on a television broadcast conducted by the regime that the coroner had said that her daughter had died of a heart attack, and That is fact and law of the land, but that is what the idiots out there in Normieville are going to be thinking, that white nationalism means that you run down innocent girls in your automobile. That's what they're hearing in their heads when they hear white nationalism. No, they have banned white people from starting our own community. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the steps that were taken against me by Vimeo to censor me, censor my voice from their platform, and their response when I objected to it. As I said, we're going to be talking with Clarion about that. And we're going to be talking about what happened to Jared Taylor. That is news at the moment. And I actually, moments before we began this Going Free stream, I received, seriously, moments before starting the stream, I received another email, this one from YouTube, saying that they were putting one of my videos into the black box so that no one can reach it unless they come to my YouTube channel. You're not able to comment on it anymore. Of course, it's now put into this limited state that they do this to. And what's the reason for it? There's nothing on that video that infringes any of the rules that YouTube has set up. So not only that, but this is an older video. So it means that anti-whites are going back through my videos and nitpicking as best they can to see where they can find a reason to get me a strike or to get my videos put into limited state. So that's happening right now. A lot of censorship. We have the Article 13 going on as well. We have, let's see, what else do we have? Well, of course, we have the Sellner once again. I don't know much about him, but I did learn from a wonderful woman in the cause that Sellner's home was raided because this crazed shooter had contributed money to him. So at some point in the past. So what does that mean for all of us moving forward? Does that mean that the government is going to claim that somebody sent a couple dollars to me at some point, and that now that person has committed some sort of crime, so now I have to be raided? Now all of my electronic devices have to be stolen by this anti-white regime? So it's really important. But I just want to say this information, and actually that's where I'm going to, I think I might like to start with this Jared Taylor information, because I have the article up right now. But I do want to say to you all, as we wait for a few more people to join, if you could please tweet this stream to your circles of influence. Do it now. Gab this stream to your circles of influence. Post it up on your Facebook, post it up on your Minds, and any other social networking websites that you know of. By the way, if you do know of some, if you look down into, and I'll just say this because I'm going to give you this instruction anyhow. If you want to super chat, you can do so here on YouTube. So if you want me to see your comments, you can write them in the chat. I have them up unless the glitch banning gets underway again by YouTube, which seems to be ever present by these anti-whites, because and we'll talk about this, why they need to prevent you from hearing us in the white positive sphere. In particular, those of us who are sharing the message of white well-being. You can write me questions there. If you want me to see those questions, you can tag me as No White Guilt. That will radically increase the chances I will see your questions or comments. And then finally, the surefire way for me to see your questions or comments is by way of super chat. You can do that right here on YouTube, or you can go down into the description and find a familiar alternative for your super chats. I will see them here as well. I have that screen up, and so I will read them as soon as they come in. When you go down into my description segment under the video, by the way, you will also find Clarion's contact information for her Facebook website in that description as well below. When you go down, have a look at my social media platforms and payment processing platforms. If you know of a social media platform that is strong and stable, that has at least a moderate reach, not more than maybe 2,000 users or something like this. If you know of a financial transaction platform that you don't see there that's also strong, let me know what those platforms are. We need to keep I need to keep my presence as broad as possible to dissuade these sort of attacks, so that the anti-whites looking in see that I am in so many places. It's easier to go someplace else and undermine some other person who has not been as assiduous in ensuring that his message reaches, or her message reaches, the masses. And you can see we already have Clarion's dogs are fired up about this show as well, which is great. We also sometimes we have Dr. Patrick Slattery's dogs who will chime in when they get excited by our streams. So it's a good thing. But actually, what I'll do is I'll introduce Clarion right now, have her tell you all a couple things about herself, what she's doing, and then we will move into what happened to Jared Taylor. I will tell you all the facts, and we'll maybe take some questions or comments about that as well. So Clarion, if you will, please introduce yourself to our community.
Oh, it's good to be here. I just brought one of the bad barking dogs into the office with me. So hopefully they'll simmer down. I am currently the admin of the alt-right Facebook page, but because of their new Facebook policy, who knows how much longer the Facebook page will be up. I've been doing that for a few years, and I will be creating a YouTube channel shortly. And most of what I've done for the white positive movement has been silent behind the scenes. So I guess that's about it. I'm a mother, I'm a homeschooler, I'm a wife, I'm a Christian, and I'm a racially conscious white woman. I guess that about sums it up.
Well, I mean, and that's something that last time we had you on, a great many people wrote me and were very excited that you had been on Going Free with me. They really enjoyed your presence, and a big part of that is because they identify with you. I think it goes you, me, Jared, George, a lot of us. We are your normal, red-blooded, tax-paying, law-abiding members of our communities. Members of, obviously, of Western kind, members of our states, of our countries, and we have had enough. We are fed up. We are sick and tired of this anti-whiteism that is being inflicted on us, the harm that is being inflicted on us, our people, especially our children. So, and we're saying enough is enough, and we're reaching out, and we ask all of you good people in the who are listening now, whether live or in replay, to reach out with this video to as many people as you can, so we can get as many people on board with the process of going free, with this information that is critical for people to hear. Now, one of the biggest problems when it comes to the censorship is the fact that the anti-whites are able to do it in secret. A great white pill, a great positive element that everyone should focus on, if only for a moment, is that there is a force in this world, and we talked about it a couple of Going Free streams ago. There is a force in this world that the anti-whites are terrified of. It's a force that's greater than them, a force that's greater than the bankers, a force that has much more strength and much more might than the anti-white ideology, than the printing presses for the banks. And that force is the broad sweeping, many scores of millions of middle class white Americans, and the same middle class of Australians, Germans, Englishmen, etc. If the anti-whites had absolute control, if they just dominated everything in our nations, dominated the entire West, if there wasn't this oppositional force, they wouldn't bother propagandizing these people. There wouldn't be such a thing as a hush crime. They wouldn't cover these things up. They wouldn't conceal that this sort of censorship was taking place. Now, the reason why they have to conceal these things is because they know that if that information reached those scores of millions of normal white people who are paying their taxes and obeying the law and still have their faith in the regime, the entities of the regime, the government, etc., they know that if that group were to realize that there is no law and order in our lands. The law is applied selectively, that that the law will be dilated to persecute and prosecute us, that the law will be junked when it comes to the anti-whites. They know the moment that these people realize that their control over their minds is over. So they reveal to us, the anti-whites reveal to us, that there is indeed a power greater than them. And what we have to do then is we have to get to this force, this mass of people out there, and get the message to them that these things are taking place. That is going to require all of us contributing. What I was saying the other day when it came to voting, and what needs to be said repeatedly, is voting is not your voice. Voting for a candidate is not your voice. Your voice is the things that you say, the acts that you take to reach out to friends, family, and strangers to spread this curative contagion of going free, to spread these websites, to spread these streams, so that to spread these Facebook groups like Clarion's, so that more of our people come to this reality. That is what your voice is. That is going to be the only thing that saves us. Do not put your faith in another politician. If Trump has not taught you that, and if I presume all of you are older than 18 at least, and you've voted more than once, you must realize by now that every time you have been let down, it's not going to change. Trump was the only anomaly in the system, and he seemed like there was some potential there, that there was going to be some radical change by him getting into office. And so we can all be forgiven if we believed erroneously that we were going to see some sort of radical change in the agenda of the country. Instead, what do we have? We have Bush all over again with an edge to him, and some insults and some showmanship. Effectively, that's what we effectively have. We have the endorsement of Israel. We have the more money going to Israel, the subservience to Israel, the recognizing of what took place on June 9th, 1967, when the Israelis stole the Golan Heights, but then no recognition of what took place the day before, on June 8th, 1967, when the Israelis attacked the USS Liberty. So this is the reality that we are facing today. So we do have Gotchi super chatting $10. Thank you very much for that super chat. Didn't write anything, but it is a boon to all the work that we're doing here for white well-being, and across all of the content producers who support the cause of white well-being, and specifically carrying this lexicon and these dialectics to our people as well. Vampire Squid says, fed up with living around people who don't physically look like us. And the reason why you're fed up with it is because you are, as all human animals do, you're looking for that harmonization between your biospirit and the projection of that biospirit onto your environment, and you want to see that reflected back at you. Trust me, they dislike seeing you. They feel as uncomfortable with you as you do with them. That is why multiracialism, under any name, under any pretext, multiculturalism, whatever you want to call it, has never worked. It always ends up in balkanization and sanguinary warfare. Okay, so we have Dino talks about a Russian social network. I've never seen this VK. I've never seen that. Is that a group that others know of that they're on? Spartan Warrior Queen says the sound is 5 by 5. Is that good? You might have some more knowledge about 5 by 5 than I do. Let me see. Thoughts on the Green New Deal? Maybe we'll talk about that. Mention it. Let's see what else we have up. Any suggestion for media for children and preteens? Well, we're gonna be talking about that shortly. Once we get through some of the censorship stuff, we're gonna get into teaching our children to choose white mates, and that is one of the most virtuous things that you could possibly do. National Racialism says the middle class will be destroyed by the bankers. Well, remember that the moment that they feel, the moment that they want to go ahead and drive them our direction, then more power to the bankers, because that will yield us scores of millions of people that'll be ready to take action because they won't want to live impoverished. Okay, Dino says, "Yep, it's a Russian network and sounds interesting." So I'll have to look into that to see about spreading the message of white well-being. Mark writes, "I didn't get a notification that you were live streaming, just happened to be on YouTube. VK is a great network. Been trying to get people on there for a while. No censorship." Wow, all right, that sounds interesting. I'll definitely have to check that out. Let's see. Let's get that info out there. Dino says, yeah, absolutely. Let's absolutely do that, folks. Once again, if you haven't, please click the thumbs up. Make sure that if you have subscribed, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you have, make sure you're still subscribed, because you are being artificially unsubscribed by YouTube. Many people have written this to me. If you have not clicked the bell, please do. And if you have, please make sure that it is still on, so that you will, at least in theory, get the notification. That's what's supposed to happen. So really quickly, and then we're going to go to Clarion, because this, in what's happening with her on Facebook, she has been reaching folks, and we're going to get into this. She's been reaching a great many people. You obviously recognized her talent as a leader, as an orator, as a thinker, as a strong female figure in our community when she was here last. And perhaps some of you have seen some of her material before coming to the show, and since hearing her on the show. And so we're going to get her take on what's happening with her group. She's going nowhere. If they take her off of Facebook, rest assured that No White Guilt is going to make sure that she continues to play a part in every single way that I can enable her to take a part in the process of going free. But she is she's no coward. She is indefatigable, like some of you all are, when it comes to white well-being. And of course, many of us are motivated purely by this, being something. I mean, I don't have any children, at least as of yet, and so for us, for those who are childless, and may perhaps will always be childless, for us, it has a certain meaning. This fight, very spiritual. But when it comes to those with children, it has a very immediate feel to it, a very immediate urgency, I guess, to be redundant there, because they look into the eyes of those children every day, and they wonder what kind of world they're going to be leaving behind. That is really what I felt ever since I dedicated my life to the service of white well-being when I was in junior high school. It struck me as, and if you get my book, Born Guilty, you'll see how and why it struck me like that, the way that it did. But the effects that take place on the youngest members of our community is something that drives me. It is really the center of the fire that's at my heart to fight for white well-being, is to protect our children. So let's talk really briefly about Jared Taylor, letter from the Zurich airport. And this is from today. It was posted today. Dear friends in Stockholm, around the world, he says here, and for all of you, this is something to keep in mind, that there are a lot of us who continue, and this is what my message was the other day, about do not look to a politician for your salvation. Don't look, this whole debate about Yang or Trump and all of this stuff. Stop looking to some individual out there to save you. Stop looking to other groups to save us. Don't think that a non-white is going to be able to say X, Y, and Z, and because they're non-white, but you're not able to say it. So if we just get them, and that's a conservative mindset. It's never happened. You've got to look to yourself for this salvation. You've got to look to yourself if we're going to be successful. All of us are going to have to be all hands on deck to recapture our destiny. We're all going to have to play a little role, but that's okay. because you don't need, as an individual, to save the world. You just have to do your little part. I will do my part. And all of that put together will be all that we need and more to recapture our destiny and save our civilizations, save these societies for our future, for our posterity, for those generations of children yet to come. Jared Taylor is certainly doing his part. He says, "I'm sorry to have to tell you that I cannot attend the Skansa Forum in Stockholm." And he also was going to be attending another conference in Finland sometime after that. Swiss border authorities, let me see here. He says, when he was waiting for his connecting flight to Stockholm, Swiss border authorities told him that he had been banned from Europe until 2021. Jared Taylor, a man who has dedicated the majority of his life to white well-being, never in a single day has he said anything violent. Has he advocated violence? Has he implied that some good would come to us by way of violence? In fact, he has been criticized, and rightly so, I think, by some in some cases, about being a little too laid back when it comes to advocating for white well-being, a little bit too much in the old school way of viewing the contest as though, you know, we're still playing by the Queensberry rules, and we have to be overly delicate at times when it comes to how we handle. I know Jared and I have had our own disagreements, Jared Taylor, about how we speak about the anti-whites. He opts to believe that there are anti-whites out there that still have some sort of, they believe they're doing what they're doing for some noble reason, and they somehow don't know all the harm that they're inflicting. I don't believe that whatsoever. And more importantly, it is important by when it comes to your understanding and by way of your communication with your friends and family and strangers, etc., for you to frame it by way of the lexicon and dialectics that we use. Because if you frame it any other way, the bottom line is you can't carry the fight out against people who might be wrong, accidentally harming you by way of the things they're doing, by way of the processes in which they partake, by way of the acts, the ideas, etc., that they invest themselves in. No, you have to know them for who and what they are, and that will move them quicker than understanding that even if there's an individual out there, and I grant there might be an individual out there so benighted that they think that they're doing good without realizing all the harm they're doing to our people, to our civilization. I mean, really, how could you, what kind of bubble would you have to live in to not realize all the harm that you're doing to Western civilization by still participating in anti-whiteism, by being an advocate of anti-white ideology? It is everywhere. It is inescapable to see Western civilization being burned down all around us, being changed all around us, white erasure taking place all around us. So I don't believe it. But Jared has been nothing but genteel in his advocacy for white well-being. And here we see the continent from which our people comes banning him. What does that tell you about who is in charge, who has the power? The anti-white narrative would tell you that white man has the power and that he's oppressing. This is the anti-white narrative. These fantasists that they live by. These are the superstitions that these anti-white bastards live by. That the white man is in charge and that he is orchestrating and operating society for the benefit of all the white people. And that if you're going to be moral, you've got to stand up and fight against this white man who runs civilization. As though this civilization was something that was given to all of humanity, and the white man just usurped it, just stole it from the rest of humanity. No, it is our creation. And by every act we see by the regime, by everything they do, by their bans, by their censorship, by who gets fired, who gets hired, who gets demoted, who gets promoted. We see who is in charge, and it is not the white man. It is the anti-white who runs this civilization. You speak up for the well-being of white babies, and you get banned from the continent of Europe. And who is responsible for the banning? To circle back to the point I was making a moment ago, who is responsible for this banning? Many of you in the white positive sphere continue to talk about, well, I'll sit on my ass because there is Eastern Europe is going to do it. The new politician in Europe, in Italy, is going to do it. The new political group in Greece is going to do it. The new government in Poland is going to do it. Well, folks, Poland did it all right. Poland is the country responsible for Jared Taylor's banning. That is who is responsible. That is the nation who is behind this. He was told specifically by the authorities that it was Poland that barred him from all 26 countries in the Schengen zone. So who's going to save you? You are going to save you, or you're not going to be saved. We are going to help each other. We are going to recapture our destiny, or there'll be no recapturing of our destiny. Stop looking to outsiders. Stop looking to politics. Forget politics. I cannot tell you, I should have the support of hundreds of older men and women in the sphere of white positivity. I should have their support right now, have the financial resources, the legal resources, etc. All of that help. I should have all of that help right now in building the organizational entity that I need to bring white well-being to all of you. But you know why they haven't started supporting me yet? Because it's not another political campaign. Because they can't get their heads out of their asses in thinking that has to be another politician. It has to be someone that talks like a politician. It can't be a psychological and cultural approach wound into one. No, it can't be that. It's got to be another politician. What has happened is they have gotten so comfortable in how they lose that they are afraid to take steps into something new, something novel, something that will win. Stop with looking to politics. No more political parties. You're not going to take over the Republican Party. They just had a purge 6 months ago in the conservative movement and in the Republican Party. If you all aren't aware, a lot of those people in the white positive sphere who kept advocating, all you got to do is you go down to your Republican this or your Republican that, and they're just full of all of these senescent, antiquated people that are just on the verge of keeling over from age. And you just take it over, you just run it. And many people went out there and they did that. Many people went out into these conservative rags and started writing for them. And then 6 months ago, what happened? The purging started, and they've all been thrown out. So forget this idea of a political solution. Drop this nonsense. Don't give another dollar to another politician. Don't invest another minute in another politician. Everything that you would have invested in your time, in your money, in your effort, put it instead to spreading this curative contagion. Get out there to your circles of influence and speak to them. Make your robocalls to strangers about white well-being. Go out into your neighborhood and pass out leaflets and flyers about white well-being. Print them up yourself. Don't write me and say, invent this for me, Jason. Do this for me. Print it up yourself. Take some snippets out of my book. Take some quotes out of my writings. Put that on a leaflet. Put it with a beautiful picture of a white child and go pass that out to your neighborhood. Talk about how we're being censored. Talk about what's being done to those who speak out for white well-being. You do nothing when you speak out on behalf of some politician. And I don't want to, if somebody wants to ask, please, no one asked me about Patrick Little or some other idiotic political campaign. I don't want to hear it. I worked on Capitol Hill in the conservative nerve center for the United States. I attended meetings. You can read it in my book, Born Guilty, where I attended the meetings, off the record meetings that had the White House staff there, House and Senate members there, the heads of the biggest conservative organizations in the country. And I can tell you firsthand, you have no chance in hell of doing anything by way of a political campaign or politician. So I want you all, you people who are listening to me, people who are in the chat right now, I see a lot of people are fired up about this. I see a lot of people in the review of this post show and the thread afterward who get the things that we're saying here. Go out into these other streams when you watch these other content producers. Tell their audiences the truth about what's being spread here. Let's dispel this stupidity once and for all. We need to focus on what is real and stop with these fantasies. And one of the biggest fantasies as of late is this Yang moron. And I absolutely eviscerated any conversation about Yang in the past couple of streams. If there's any question, go and watch those streams. And if you still have a question, you just failed your IQ test. There's nothing more that can be done for you. So Jared Taylor, banned from all of Europe by the great nationalist country of Poland, who was going to be saving us. And I don't want to hear the excuses about why they may have thought this or why they may have thought that. That is the reality about what's taking place. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look back through some of the statements you all made. I'm going to make some notes, and we're going to hear from Clarion. She's going to talk to us about what's going on with Facebook, that they are banning white people from forming our own communities, and how that is going to affect her and the work that she does there, and perhaps some ideas maybe that she and her colleagues might have about how to prevent their page from being banned and how they might move forward if that comes to fruition. So Clarion, I pass the mic over to you.
Thank you. I think it's interesting that you are noting that what we should not be doing is saying that Facebook is banning, quote, white nationalism, because Facebook isn't even claiming that they're banning white nationalism. I mean, they do say that they are going to discontinue what they purported to have done, which they've never done, which is make a delineation between whites. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, Jason. Hold on 1 second, please. I'll just kick the dogs out. I'm sorry. I'll be right back.
No, it's okay. We have questions anyhow. We have Patrick. It's an endless delight to me when Patrick's dogs, his little dogs, go barking in the background because he gets so nervous about it. But let's see. We have Ross Hunter says, this is pathetic. He spent the time to fly to Europe and is getting sent back. Indeed. And I got a lot of questions about that. Is he forced to pay for what's happening to him? Does he have to pay for the expensive ticket now? Because it's not the flight that was planned. It's now a completely different flight. We got, let me see. Bamie Boomerang, VK is getting popular in Europe, but not a ground for reaching blue-pilled folks. Most of the users from Western Europe are already political dissidents. Well, thank you for that information. It still might be worth getting on board. Daughter of Albion, a sweet young woman, writes, you should have just walked across our open borders with a bunch of trafficked children. They'd have rolled out the red carpet. He should have. Jared Taylor. Yeah, if Jared Taylor had snuck into Europe with a bunch of sex slave children, the European, I imagine the women would probably stream down from Sweden to throw their bodies on the ground so that Jared Taylor and the sex trafficked children could not get their shoes dirty. Yeah, that's exactly right. If you care about white well-being, no, you're going to be banned. But if you come into the country and you have a bunch of children and you have a bunch of illegals, you have a bunch of fighting-aged men who are claiming to be like 15-year-old boys when they're really 25, 30-year-old men, then you're welcomed right away. But if you care about white well-being and you are as genteel, as educated, as intelligent as Jared Taylor, as polite as Jared Taylor, as accommodating as Jared Taylor, as non-threatening as Jared Taylor, you're banned. Again, revealing who is in charge of Europe, who is in control of Europe. What more do you need? Do we need to have any debate about who is in charge of Europe? who is in charge of all of those countries. There doesn't need to be a debate. They've just revealed it. I mean, this is like the magician absolutely pulling the curtain back, and you see exactly what he's doing. But Clarion, are you back from your interlude with the puppies?
I am sorry about that.
No, please go right ahead.
So what I was saying was that Facebook claims that the new policy is dissolving the delineation between, quote, white supremacism and white nationalism, or what was the other word that the phrase that they used?
Separatism?
Yes, excuse me, white separatism, right? So that there now we can no longer talk about, quote, white nationalism or white separatism. But I was reading the article in the New York Times. I mean, this is all over the mainstream media. So I just the article that I read was in the New York Times, and they had different talking heads, SPLC and ADL, and all of these anti-white people talking about how this was excellent news, and that really one person stated, I think she was from the SPLC, it doesn't matter, some anti-white, said that really what this was because there are no white people. There are no white people. So anytime white interests, that's a quote, anytime white interests are being talked about, that in and of itself is illegitimate, because there are no white people. And so if anybody on Facebook is talking about anything that is about, quote, white people, that it by nature has to be illegitimate, because since we don't exist, that if anybody's talking about white anything, that it's merely a dog whistle to talk about white supremacism. So really what this Facebook ban is about goes well beyond disallowing us to talk about white separatism or white nationalism. We can't talk about ourselves at all. Is what's coming down the pike, which is exactly what they need, is for us. I find this repeatedly. There are many trolls. I would wager that many of the trolls on our page are paid. And that is a major component of what they try to do on the alt-right Facebook page. And that is to convince people, either through mockery or through sociological science, quote, or through almost like a chit chat kind of. I mean, they have a bunch of different ways of communicating it, but what it all comes down to is that they are repeatedly trying to gaslight our people that we don't exist. Mm-hmm. And that's what this ban is about, is disallowing us to see ourselves as a people, separate or otherwise. We don't, not only do we not get to be separate, we don't get to exist. Right. Is what this is about. So to try to, James and I, that's my partner on the alt-right Facebook page, we have always looked at Facebook as the place, we were just talking about VK being not really a place where blue-pilled people are going to be, or, there is a lot of benefit. Sociologically, it's been shown that what I consider is a benefit of being in what our people call an echo chamber. But there is a benefit to expanding our reach by reaching the normies, by helping them to go free, to see themselves as a people, to start curing themselves of the anti-white pathogens that they've been repeatedly infected by throughout their lives. And where you do that is where the normies are. So that's why we are on Facebook. That's why we started on Facebook. That's why we're continuing to try to remain alive on Facebook. Anybody who follows our page sees that we're not to say that we are at the same intellectual level, but our tenor and our subject matter, we are the Jared Taylor of Facebook, right? Like everything that we say is white positive. It is not, it's never a call for violence, never. But we really don't even focus on anything but our people. because that's what we're trying to do. So we've gotten a couple of temporary bans. A couple of years ago, when things got really hot, we got banned for like a week, I think. But because we are always so reasonable, we don't get a lot of that heat. But being reasonable is not a defense for our people. Being reasonable actually, I think, is making us a target in this, because we reach people by being just normal people. So we are shunting the name, the alt-right. We talked about doing that a couple of years ago as not that clear on what we're about. When we started out, that was like the hot term, but I mean, I don't think what quote the alt-right has ever been clear, and it has become less clear as time goes on. That's my opinion. So we've put into Facebook for a name change to Nationalism Rising. It was denied, where we were denied a name change. So we've put in an appeal to change our name. And the reason being because the alt-right, regardless of, we are used to, our dissidents are used to the truth being completely irrelevant to the anti-whites. But as we know, alt-right has become synonymous with, quote, white nationalism. And purportedly, quote, white nationalism is now banned on Facebook. And so we figured that we needed to get rid of a name that was synonymous with white nationalism. So that's what we're trying to do. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, I was just going to say, as soon as you said you were putting in for a name change, I was going to say, I didn't want to interrupt you. They're going to deny you. And then then you say they denied you.
Immediately.
Unbelievable, or totally predictable. This is the world we are in. The anti-whites, and the problem is that we have always, for the totality of this victimizer attacking us and harming us, we have always engaged in this Cold War, if you will, and which sometimes goes hot, like when they decide to jail our people illegally. And of course, physically attack us, the anti-whites, when they're given carte blanche in the streets to hit people in the head with bicycle locks, and then get charged only to drop the charges. Or you have like a Jussie Smollett, who exactly what I said did happen with him, which is that they would overcharge him, and then because of the overcharging, release him. And that's exactly what happened. He committed a hate crime against the totality of our people by drawing the noose of suspicion around our throats, and nothing happens. Again, telling you who's in charge. You had that, just on that point right there, you had that student and maybe somebody can remember his name in the chat, the one who was a little bit tipsy, got surrounded by the anti-whites who were attacking him for being white, who were defaming our people, and he decided to say, no, I love our people, and speak the truth about all of our discoveries, all of our advancements, all of our creations. And the young non-white woman, during that videotaping, she says in the videotape that, okay, Twitter, now you go ahead and do your thing. They know that they run the show. They know that they're perpetuating an anti-white narrative by claiming that they're the little guy fighting this big anti-white oppression. There hasn't been anti-white oppression in this country for any of our lives. I want you all to realize that. Not any of our lives has there been the white man in charge conducting society so that it benefits us. There is no evidence of it. You want to look to these, they say these things, the anti-whites will talk about all of these so-called hate crimes from whites against non-whites. And then when you look into it, what they've done is they've defined anything like a white guy got into an argument with a non-white person, and he may have used a racial slur. Well, that was a hate crime then. But the same label is used when there are murders conducted by non-whites against white people. Well, if they're going to call it a hate crime, then it's got to elevate to the level of mass murder for it to be a non-white. But when it's a white person, it can just be an ugly stare at a non-white person, that qualifies and gets put under the category. And they then flesh out this anti-white narrative with the evidence of these hate crimes all around the world. We have some super chats I want to read. Ryan's super chatting by way of the familiar alternative, $5. Thank you very much for digging down into the description to find the familiar alternative. Ross Hunter also following Ryan on down with $5 more super chat and writing, stay strong, family. You all do exist. And I'm glad that you are here fighting for white well-being. Amen, Ross. Thank you for the super chat and the good words. And thank you for supporting white well-being with us. We also have a super chat of 100 Danish krona by New Cloud Stalker. I see decent, even great men sidelined and deranged lunatics promoted by the elites rulers of our day. People like James Watson besmirched, pro-whites banned, truth speakers shut down. Very well written, well said. New Cloud Stalker, thank you very much for your support of white well-being and your investment in the cause of work we are doing here and advancement of the white positive sphere. Let's see, who else do we have here? We have Saint Stringfellow. Can't wait for Born Free 2.0. Any closer to release? We move closer every single day. There's so much to do. I would like to have about 10 of me and just whip right through it. But unfortunately, I have not nailed down how to clone myself. Let's get back to the censorship. So you all are going to change, Clarion, your name, or you're trying to change your name. You've appealed that, right?
Right.
And you haven't heard anything back yet.
No, we haven't.
What do you have any idea of what are you going to? Is there a potential of starting a brand new group and having everybody who's a member migrate over?
Well. Yes, I mean that's an option, and I think if I'm just guessing that probably if we get a final denial on the appeal, that we'll probably do that. But the way that Facebook works is it makes it difficult to start a new page because, well, first of all, we've been throttled for like probably 2 years. Like our follower and like count hasn't moved in 2 years. Up or down, like it's just exactly the same as it was. So it's hard to start another page. I don't know. So we're gonna try to maintain the investment that we've made on this page. But if we get banned, then of course we'll start another page. Because that's where the normies are. So we will. This just happened. My friend who does this with me, he lives in another hemisphere. So, so he and I, we were up late into the night, early into his morning, late into my night, trying to figure out what our next step is. So right now we did a post. We put in for the name change. We changed some of our imagery, and now we wait. So, but regardless, and one of the great things too is that I would say like the past 4 years, I have seen an explosion of dissident right pages on Facebook. It's been incredible, really. I mean, there were so few. Like, I mean, just the fact that we were able to secure the page, the alt-right. I mean, there just wasn't a big dissident presence on Facebook. It's kind of, I don't know, maybe people see it as like a little bit prosaic. They want to live on the edge somewhere. They want to be edgelords somewhere. They don't want to hang out with like, they don't want to hang out with the normies doing normie stuff on Facebook. But it's really edifying when over the years, the relationships that we've built and so many stories. And I know that you speak about this too. So many people writing that say, because of you, I'm here, which is phenomenal. And a lot of the people who are saying that are family people. So this is going into the next generation, assuredly. So, we're gonna persevere regardless. And the thing about it is that the new image that we put up is an image, and I think it's I'm like 99% sure that the image that we put up is a meme that uses, ironically enough, to this conversation about Jared Taylor, a nationalist, um, the big nationalist march in Poland. If you've seen it, the with the torches,
Mm-hmm.
and a quote that the most powerful weapon on earth is the human soul on fire. I mean, and that's every person that they ban from, somebody being banned, Jared Taylor, say, being banned from Europe, that's going to definitely shock some people into their own action. What you were saying about
Mm-hmm.
people, sending money to the GOP, and thinking that they've done something well, well done. When they see that somebody like you, the adjective you use, which is perfect, somebody as genteel as Jared Taylor is banned from his people's homeland. For what? For essentially saying it's okay to be white. For 20 years, that's pretty much all he has said over and over and over. And for that, the genteel gentleman who merely says we have a right to exist, we do exist, we want to continue to exist, him being banned is going to shock someone into their own personal action. It has to.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like every time that one of us is banned from anything, that if our Facebook page is shut down, that the people who have been following it all these years and see, that we never, we speak the truth and we speak it boldly, but the truth is not a terrible truth. It's a beautiful truth. And merely speaking that, if our page is banned, people are going to be shocked into their own action, if that happens. So I think that every time they try to censor us, it shocks more people into their own action. So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, yeah, it's the Streisand effect in many cases. We have looks like Laurel and some others had the young man's name, Von Abel, or however his family chooses to pronounce that surname, was the individual who had been surrounded. And whatever happened to him, I wonder if anybody knows, please speak up. But we have some other questions that I was able to take down. I do have, oh, by the way, yes, I do have the Way of the World mug. If you all have not seen this before, it makes every cup of coffee and tea taste better. I don't know how that is. But if you don't have one, folks, you are missing out on the sweeter taste, the nectar that comes from the Way of the World mug. So let's see here. We have some questions. I think we have Phoenix Unbounded asked, agree with what you said about political parties, but do you think there is anything constructive those within the political sphere can do? I will tell you from my experience inside the machine on the Hill in Washington, D.C., that politicians don't care about you at all. An individual politician is concerned with himself or herself at the public trough, being able to be in the limelight, being able to get the pay of being a politician, being able to be interviewed, being able to feel powerful and have power over others. Those individuals are genuinely competing for those positions to be able to have that reward that they seek so bad. And there's a lot said about the kind of person that seeks that, the majority of the kind of people that seek that kind of position. They only care about you insofar as they can persuade you to check their name during the few seconds that is required for you to actually either pull the lever, press the button, fill in the circle, whatever it is. That's all they're worried about as far as you are concerned. Once they're in office, they are in 100% service to those who are behind them with the finances and those who control the media. They do not care what you think whatsoever, because they know ultimately that those who run the media, just a handful of anti-white individuals, can destroy them overnight or can make them the biggest name in the country overnight. So those are the people who they're concerned with. They will happily make promises to you, and then they will just as happily, as a good little dog hops up in its master's lap, they will just as happily obey the desires of those who are behind them financially and those who control the media. So if there are good people inside the GOP or wherever, maybe these people who just work in the government, the best thing they could do is get information to us about what's going on. They are not going to be able to effectuate any sort of change whatsoever. The sooner we realize, now, if you want to vote, if you feel that you've always voted, your parents voted, your grandpappy voted, and this is really important to you to just participate, then go ahead and cast your vote. Don't invest yourself in that politician. Don't invest yourself and the outcomes of things that you feel are really important in those individuals and that political entity, because it will fail you every single time, even when they are as persuasive as someone as Donald Trump. Go ahead and cast your little vote, but with your time, with your money, with your abilities, put that into spreading this curative contagion of white well-being. That is what's going to create the transformation and bring us into a new context where new opportunities will be available to us. Please let's not do, I mean, I have this every single election. I tell people before the election, do not invest yourself in this. Do not think that your hopes and dreams are going to be realized by way of this election and this politician. And then people do it. And then they come back to me and they're broken. They're depressed. They're saturnine. They're lugubrious. They're really lugubrious over it. I mean, it's comical. I can't believe the whole world is over. No, it was never going to work by way of that route. It has never worked in our lifetimes. We have not had a single politician in any of our lifetimes that said, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z for the white people who are the real Americans, because they built this nation. If it weren't for whites, there wouldn't be an America, because America is a Western civilization, and then got into office and did that. None of us have been alive for that. So why is there still this massive learning curve out there? So we had, let me see, Bill Seaver said, how old am I? I don't know. How old do I look? And what age would you ideally want children? As soon as fate gives me the opportunity, my friend. Let me see. Baby Boomerang says, Poland announced a couple of months ago that they want to import Filipino guest workers. I remember reading about that, Baby Boomerang. They absolutely did. And what happened to a bunch of the people in the white positive sphere? They had invested so much in well, if it fails here, I'll just go to Poland nonsense, that they tried to deny that. They tried to, well, are you sure that's actually true? Yes, it's true. Common Sense has some criticism for me. He says, Jason, stop educating, start organizing. I'm trying to do that, my friend. And if you have some better ideas and some ideas for funding, please reach out to me by way of my website, and let's talk about making it happen. If you have the financial wherewithal, I am ears open. Let me see. Research the Seville 4 just super chatted $14.88. Thank you very much for that super chat and this investment in the cause of white well-being. We actually have, as later in our conversation today, we're going to talk about, I think it was, let me see, I think it is the 9 words. And that was suggested to me by a advocate for white well-being. Her name is Althea. You may know her on Twitter. She does a lot of work for the cause. And we will talk about the 9 words a little later, because they are going to be more effective for healing you and our people than are the 14 words. National Racialism writes, so you are correct. America is a machine. Use the machine. Don't use the people. And we have A Holler Girl, super chatting with $5. Thank you very much for that investment. Writing, I love the way you reshape the narrative. I'm a boomer. So yes, we are here. Amen. There is in the cause of white well-being, there is no boomer nonsense that people talk about. We do not break our people up into these different age brackets and then attribute certain things to them as though it's, you know, astrology, which actually probably has more science to it than this whole generational nonsense. Certainly when they're defaming a group of people for X, Y, and Z. You know what I really, and I'll just say one thing about this, and then we'll get back to the censorship, and that is that these people who say, well, the boomers, here's a list of things that went bad while the boomers came of age and were able to vote. And I immediately say to them, and they'll say, well, and the boomers are to blame for all this. And then I say to them, well, what's your excuse? And they say, what do you mean my excuse? Well, what's your excuse for the border being open, for all of that welfare being shunted illegally to illegal aliens, for an entire welfare state, and I run down the line of everything that's happening today, and their eyes get bigger and bigger as they realize that, oh, they can't be held responsible for all of these continental shift type movements at the height of government, at the political level, and yet they're holding these people responsible for the things that were out of their control when they came of age and could finally vote. It's nonsense. We don't break each other up into these different groups and then attack each other. Here are the groups. If you serve white well-being, you're a good guy. If you're anti-white, you are a victimizer. Those are the groups. Now choose your sides. So let's see who else we have here. We had Phoenix Fire digging down into the description to find the familiar alternative. Shovel is not yet worn out, obviously. Thank you, Phoenix Fire. Super chatting with $10. Stay focused, everyone. Thank you very much for that super chat. And if we have any more, I will absolutely get to them, but I want to keep the show moving along to the next issue of the censorship, and that is just to mention that 2 nights ago, I received an email from Vimeo. If you don't know what Vimeo is, it's like a smaller version of YouTube. I've been on there for a long time, posting my content there. People have been consuming my content there. 2 nights ago, Vimeo made the decision to just arbitrarily delete all of my videos and shut down my account. And they said the reason for that was that I had violated their terms of service. And as I click here and I look for their specific email rather, I had violated their terms of service. So I wrote back to them, I appealed, and I shared with them that I plucked out of their terms of service where they talk about inviting, that the harass, incite hatred, or include discriminatory or defamatory speech against any group. That was in their terms of service, and that was the excuse being used to delete all of my content and censor me from their platform. So I appealed, and I said, look, I do none of this. You most likely still have access to my content. You can look at it. I support white well-being. I don't attack any of these other groups. I don't talk about I mean, even American Renaissance goes further than me in that respect, in that they'll talk about the black crime rate relative to the white crime rate or what have you. I don't do any of that. And yet I was censored. So I wrote back and I said, look, I support white well-being. And if you object to white well-being, then just say so. Just say you're kicking me off your platform because you object to white well-being. Well, they wrote back and they said, too bad, too sad. You're still kicked off our platform. And this time they included what they had in their terms of service about what was not permitted. And they also included this time whether or not we determine your videos have an overall mean-spirited vibe. That is what they actually wrote in response to my appeal. They said, well, yes, you didn't do any of those other things. Yes, you didn't attack any of the groups. Yes, you didn't defame any other group. Yeah, you didn't, etc. You didn't do all of these things. You didn't incite violence. You didn't do any of that. But if your videos have an overall mean-spirited vibe. Now, my videos don't have a mean-spirited vibe, but of course, that is as amorphous as you could possibly make it, so that they could just say anything we've just determined is now mean-spirited. So, folks, what does that reveal that Vimeo is up to? What does it reveal that Facebook is up to, relative, especially to our guest Clarion, a co-host, I should say, because she's going to be returning regularly. What does it reveal? It reveals that the anti-whites are not against white supremacy. They're not against white separatism. They're not against white nationalism. They're against white people. That is what they are against. That is what Vimeo just admitted to me, that they are against white people. Yes, Mr. Kuna, you did not do all of those things. You didn't incite hatred. You didn't speak poorly of these other groups. You didn't do all of the things that we normally say are wrong and worthy of kicking someone off of our platform for. But we just determined that because you're supporting white well-being, that is a mean-spirited vibe. One of our grotesquely obese anti-white monsters sitting at a computer typing away as the crumbs spill down off of that person's chest, it has determined that your love of your people is mean-spirited. You're not allowed to love Western kind. And of course, as Clarion was pointing out, there's no such thing as Western kind until they want to steal something from us, until they want to blame us for something, until they want to white guilt you for something. No such thing as Western kind until they want to deny you a job so that they can give it to a non-white to increase the diversity. And for every diversity hire, there's a diversity fire, and it's your ass. And guess what? Your children don't eat because of it. You don't have health insurance because of it. That is the reality of the world. And then, as I said, that's what Vimeo just did to me. And then, as I said, right before starting this stream, I get an email from YouTube saying, we've received a legal complaint regarding your video. Looks like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 countries. My video has been banned from, utterly banned. And it was the video of me on the Wolfpack, a repost of me on the Wolfpack, where I carefully go through, because if you all watch the Wolfpack, you'll know that occasionally the hosts and the guests will curse, and sometimes they say some things that I don't endorse or support. So when I post my participation of one of the videos from the Wolfpack, I carefully go through and I edit that material out. There is nothing there but love for our people. Nothing but love for our people, and yet it's now banned in all of these countries. And the subsequent email that came right after it was YouTube again saying, oh, by the way, no white guilt, it is now placed in restricted mode, so no one will be able to watch your video, comment on it, spread it, or anything like that. We're going to throttle you a little bit more on top of the shadow banning, on top of the glitch banning. We're also going to put this into the black box. Nobody's going to get to see what you have to say about love for white well-being. Why? Because it works. That's what it comes down to, folks. The reason why they don't want you to hear what Clarion has to say, the reason why they don't want you to hear what I have to say, the reason why they don't want Jared Taylor to be out in Europe talking about the things that he is saying, so that those people there can hear that the curative words and lessons coming from his mouth, is because the anti-whites in the regime, the government, the media, the universities, the churches, the anti-whites in the regime know that if you can hear our voices, they, the anti-whites, will lose their control over what you think. And if they lose their control over what you think, they lose their ability to manipulate you and your actions. That is why they have to silence us. When they say we're dangerous, it's not about any sort of typical danger. It's not about people running through the streets and society collapsing. No, the danger is only for those anti-whites in their positions of power in our civilization, because they know that as soon as you find out what is truly going on, as soon as you hear this curative contagion, these dialectics and this lexicon, you will go free of their mental control, free of their brainwashing, and then you will turn some squinting eyes on them and want to know what the hell is going on. That is why they silence us. So I think now is the time we can transition to, as we covered all of that, we can transition to teaching our children. If there's anybody in the chat right now, please we'll take a pause here, folks. Please tweet the stream, gab the stream, post it on Facebook while you can, post it on Minds while you can, and get this out to as many people as we can so that we can help them, people we care about, our white brothers and sisters, to begin going free. Let me take a quick look at the chat. And while I do that, Clarion, I'll just ask you, you probably thought of something while I've been, I just have to say, and I know you understand this. This is so infuriating that my friends, like Jared Taylor, I started attending Amrin conferences. I think the first one I attended when I was maybe 19 years of age. So long ago, it seems like now. And to know him, to know how gentle of a man this guy is. I go to his house. We were good friends. It is absolutely despicable that that he would be banned from the continent of Europe. This man who loves so deeply and who is so caring would be banned from the land of our, and I can't even tell, do you have any thoughts? I mean, he actually shows in this article, folks, a photograph of where he was taken to sleep because he has to stay the night to be at the airports to be flown out. He is number 18. Are they gonna put a chain around his neck with a number 18? Is he gonna have to have that sewn to all of his clothes? This is where he has to be. He sums up how you can feel the pain in his voice. He said they gave him a meal voucher. He just used his meal voucher in a Terminal E. He watched people eating and talking and laughing and envied them. They can come and go as they please. Terminal E is a modern, soulless place, but it is still Europe. It is part of that cultural heritage and people that I love with a desperate, yearning love to which I have devoted my life and from which I am banned. Jared Taylor, ladies and gentlemen, effectively although not literally jailed, effectively a prisoner until he can be ejected from our people's homeland tomorrow morning. Clarion, do you have any thoughts?
It's a deep sorrow. That's what I think. When I found out from you that it had happened, and I was thinking about quite a while back, I heard him talking about the hope that he had ignited in him because of the new groundswell of white positive people, and that he had said that for 20 years he had felt almost as if he were only making a record for future archaeologists to look back.
Right. Are you still there? I lost your sound. Oh, there you are. Go ahead.
We no longer exist. Can you hear me? Jared Taylor had said that he felt like he was just creating an archaeological record, and that he no longer felt that way because there were so many people who were coming in and who are willing to say in their personal spheres and then also publicly, um, I'm a European and I love my people, and I'm teaching my children to love our people. And our people exist, and we're a great people. We've been a great people. We are a great people, and we will become an even greater people when we heal from what's been done to us. And to know that somebody who has worked so tirelessly for our people to be banned from our homeland right at this point in our arc, that at this moment when we are awakening so
Can't hear you at the moment, Clarion.
awakening that this is the point where the man who's been working tirelessly. Hear me now?
I can hear you now. Kind of coming in and out. Do you want to Do you want to try to try to sign out and then sign back into the stream and see if that helps?
Okay,
Because
I'll do
sometimes
that.
that can just, all right, that can be just an issue sometimes. And I've got stuff to do here, folks. If you haven't, please spread to your circles of influence. Let's see, we have some more super chats. RYWH super chatted $5 by way of the familiar alternative, writing, if you know what's going on in the world, you are obligated to help the movement because so many people are asleep. So start a family and give no white guilt your shekels. Well, make sure if you're going to give any sort of financial support, please make sure it's to people who are supporting white well-being, people who are doing the good work of spreading this word to our people who are enduring the slings and arrows of outrageous misfortune. Let's see if we have any other comments. We might have a couple more super chats I have up. I see there. Saint Stringfellow writes, no white guilt regarding Vimeo. It currently hosts a video titled, I like to imagine the world without white people in it. Huh. That is, how much more do we need to hear? How much more evidence do we need to see to realize that this is the case? We need to get it out to our brothers and sisters out there. Clarion, it looks like you have returned. Let's see if we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. Sorry about that. I don't
No
know what
worries.
happened.
I might be able to do something on my end too if it continues to be an issue. We'll see. But go ahead.
I can't believe. I mean, I can believe that you have been completely banned from Vimeo. And I really think that it's telling that the veneer is always, you've violated terms of service. And I think it's interesting that they don't even, at some point they're going to even drop that veneer, right? They're going to drop the veneer of, well, this is a mean-spirited vibe, right? Like, I mean, at least they're trying to do, trying to make some kind of basis, because eventually it'll just be like, you're white, you don't get to be here.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what's happening everywhere. A mean-spirited vibe. There's there's not much really. There's no defense against a mean-spirited vibe that we can have. So
no, precisely. I mean, that can be anything you want it to be. And it's just, this is typical of the anti-whites and the illogic, the pseudologic that they use as pretexts to advance toward their anti-white objectives. And it is something like using a phrase like mean-spirited vibe. We can say the exact same thing with more general consensus about every single thing the anti-whites do, that there is a mean-spirited vibe in everything that they say and do. Mark asked, did you read my, and then a backslash? Was it a super chat, my friend? I'm looking for, I'll find the super chat if you did. Someone writes, goddamn, Jason, you're one veiny dude. Well, that's eating right and working out helps to put you in a good shape with low body fat. So how do we teach our children to marry white partners? How do we do that? Clarion, I will let you start off this conversation. But she disappeared. Clarion lost her connection again. So we will wait for her to return. As we do, I will check back with all of you. Free Taylor, I see. Marcus writes, I really am I'm stunned by this. Like to imagine a world without white people in it, that Vimeo Vimeo is located in New York City, and I guess it's not surprising that that in that pit of anti-white misery, that they would host a video titled "I'd like to imagine a world without white people in it," but then pull down my videos of love for our people and a desire for us to have a future, protect our children. Looks like Clarion has returned. Let's see. Mark said it was this afternoon. Ah, you perhaps sent me an email then, Mark. I will check. Was it an email, Mark, or was it a direct message? Does anybody have anything to say about Jared Taylor, about what is happening with the censorship? Any thoughts? Any additional news about what's going on? I did not see a post about black press only. What is black press only? Hey, Dainty Brighton is here. Great to see you, young lady. Fantastic. Great to have you here. Oh, I see Mary Moon is here. A lot of great people in the chat. Our community is fantastic. There's Anne. Great to see you. Good Mackie is here. Clarion, is your connection working?
Is my connection working?
You
Can you hear
sound
me?
actually you
Okay.
sound stronger now. It sounds yeah.
I'm on my phone now. So on my phone I also don't have the private chat function.
I
So
see. Okay.
you and I have no private chat at the moment.
That's
But yeah, I'm on my phone. I something's going on with my Wi-Fi. I apologize.
no worries. Tech happens.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's a very
we'll let you start off the conversation about this extremely important subject, and it's grave. I mean, it's very important, but it is also something constructive that we can be doing with our children. We need to be encouraging them to take our white brothers and sisters as mates. The entirety of society, controlled by the regime, the anti-whites, is busy encouraging them, brainwashing them to take non-white mates. It's commercial after commercial shows white people with non-white mates who are elated, they're beautiful, they're intelligent, they're having the time of their lives when they're with non-white mates. Children are seeing that. And at the same time, then they see the commercials where it's the white couple and they're both dressed shoddily, they're dumb, they're having a miserable time. It's you almost uniformly the white man is an imbecile, and the white woman is having to put up with this imbecile. She should have clearly the message that the children, our white children are learning rather, is that the white woman should have chosen a non-white man. Then she would have had the non-white man who's driving in the brand new $600 suit in the brand new Mercedes or what have you, and she would be beautiful, like the beautiful white woman that they choose, the actress they choose to sit as the wife in the Mercedes with the non-white man, rather than the shoddily dressed white woman, hunch-shouldered, standing beside, just disgusted with the pathetic white man who's standing beside her with some really miserable comb over on top of his head. I see Sterling Price, right? Spartans, are you referring to, is that connected somehow to my veins and my physique? I don't know. If it is, I don't know that they looked like they did in that movie, but they certainly looked like proud warriors in the movie, and I imagine in the real world they were something analogous. But Clarion, how do we teach our children to take white mates? What do we have to look out for?
Uh, I mean, this is a little bit tangential, but everything that you're saying about media is absolutely true. And we don't have television. I'll say that. We we watch we do consume media in very particular ways. So it's not a constant drip 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 in our house of having commercials. We don't watch any commercial television. Um, so I don't have to have the constant I don't have to have that constant fight to rebuild our people as honorable or heroic or good. I don't have to keep rebuilding that because it keeps getting torn down by the kinds of insidious messages that you're saying, that you're talking about. But more specifically, uh, I think that laying out for people, in this case, what we're talking about for children, but I think this can apply to anybody, like how you started out this live stream talking about anti-whites, what you would say to anti-whites who were against white people marrying white people, in our position that that's what we should be doing. I think that all the things that I think about can be talked about with people of all ages, but it's especially sweet, I guess, to talk to children about it because they don't have that same depth of injury dependent on their life. But my children don't have that same depth of injury that like I would have when I was their age because of because of the anti-white saturation that I had at that time. So we get to really we get to do what it is that our people should always be able to do, and that is to speak positively about our people. So primarily, we speak in the positive ways. What would the positive things about marrying somebody of our people would be? We also talk about the negative things, which you would want to avoid, that any moral person would want to avoid by creating these unnecessary problems and heartbreaks and sorrows and lackings that multiracial families have to deal with. They're all unnecessary. Um, on the positive hand, we speak a lot to our heritage. Um, I know I mentioned to you at another time that a couple of years ago, because we are primarily English, we spent a year studying English and Western European history, and we went to England as a family specifically to have a heritage tour, um, and spent 2 weeks just doing that together. And we talked a lot about the spiritual connection that we had as a family doing that together. And we looked at other people who were also enjoying England in a way that tourists enjoy England. Like there are a lot of, say, Asian tourism there. But they were definitely, although they could appreciate, how pretty something was or how interesting something was from afar, that that those people were definitely only tourists as opposed to being there connecting with the history of their people. Um, and that being in connection with your people is always going to be different than being a tourist of someone else's people. And that if you're a multiracial family, somebody's always a tourist. Um, do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. See what you're saying.
Okay. I was also kind of checking because we've had so much tech problem. I didn't know if I was still on. But we talk about how beautiful that is that we get to share that. And that, if say that, my husband was of African descent. If our family had gone to Africa, it would like I would have had no connection other than as a tourist. Like, yes, this is a pretty place, and that's, I don't know even what I would say, but it definitely wouldn't be that same spiritual connection that our family felt there, and we all got to feel that. And if you marry somebody outside of your race, like one of the parents is going to definitely be 100% tourist. And then the children are going to be like with one parent but not with the other while you're experiencing that, biospirit manifestation wherever you are. Um, and how sad that is that multiracial families just can never have that binding together. So we talk a lot about that with our children, especially because throughout the year we celebrate European holidays. Almost every month we have a family celebration where we're um, taking on to our family the traditions of our people. And um, my one of my daughters, and she loves the idea of historical cooking, from English historical cooking. And she and my husband do uh, a lot of research on that and really have a lot of fun doing that. And we all enjoy folk music, and people who are in a multiracial family can't have any of that. And my children and my husband and I are bound so tightly because of those things together. I just can't imagine, quite honestly, like I just can't imagine the sorrow. I mean, this is when it becomes the, like, we're all like global citizens and everybody like eats like McDonald's together. That becomes the
Right.
binding. I don't even know. I can't imagine the lack that I would feel if we didn't have that. And I point that out to our kids a lot. Like, people who are in multiracial families can't have this. And I think that, quite honestly, is going to be enough. Um, if you really saturate your children with that family connectedness and that pulling upon their racial spirit, that, is part of who they are, you just have to cultivate it like anything else. I think that will be enough. I mean, we also, we'll make mention of other things, like, and when they get older, there are all the statistical things about the negatives. We also talk about, and this is not something older. This is something we talk about now because we have personal friends who are in these different situations, and that is the sorrow of multiracial children's spiritual identity crises, and how sad that is, and how
Mhm.
unnecessarily sad it is. I mean, their parents came together under this lie of modernity that, race is irrelevant, and maybe even going to the extent of, it would be better if we were all mixed race because that's how you eradicate racism and all of these things. And over and over and over, it doesn't matter how often the reality is shown that multiracial people self-report less happiness. They show again and again, all of these unhealthy behaviors as adolescents. Poor school performance, sexual promiscuity, higher drug use, and then, in this day and age too, even things like NPR. I saw this thing on NPR, or I heard this thing on NPR, that it talking about racial imposter syndrome. you know, and it was about multiracial people and how they themselves feel like, quote, racial imposters when they go to the non-white heritage events of their non-white lineage.
Mm.
They feel like, quote, that they have racial imposter syndrome. I mean, these are choices that we make, right? Like, those people's parents chose to marry outside of their people and to have these multiracial children, even though this everything it clearly is laid out that's against the false narrative that being multiracial is amazing. Being multiracial is a sorrow. I mean, we know this because we understand the spiritual nature of race. But even people who don't understand or have been indoctrinated against the truth that race is spiritual, study upon study upon study shows, and leftists admit, in things like the NPR. And I also read an article a couple of years ago, and it really, really struck me. It was a very tragic article in the I think it was in Daily Mail, and it was about a woman writing autobiographically. She was a white woman, and she had married somebody of Indian descent in London. And she talked quite bluntly that her children felt, quote, alien to her. As a mother, I cannot,
Mm,
I can't, that hurt my heart so much to
mm.
read that. I'll never forget it. To look at your own flesh and blood and to see them as alien to you. That's an unnecessary sorrow that she's carrying for the rest of her life and has given to her own children because of this ridiculous messaging that race doesn't matter. And it's those kinds of stories that our children know, um, and know that it's a sorrow that these
Yeah.
people have to bear, which is an unnecessary sorrow. And not only do they have to bear these sorrows, they do not get to have the joy of a racial binding together of their family. That both are choice, and that the choice that they need to make for the benefit of our people, for the benefit of themselves, for the benefit of their children, is to choose to be with our people.
That's very sagacious. Well said. There's a lot of information packed in there. I mean, folks will be able to go back and listen to that a couple times and keep pulling little threads out from what you're saying, the things they'll be able to use for their children. It's so very important. Everyone out there listening, you think that your contribution, how it might seem small to you. Clarion just shared with you some things that she has shared with her children and are working. That little sharing, that little bit of information has now gone out to you. It's gone out to everyone who is going to hear this information, and everyone else that they share that information with, and everyone else that they share. So you see how this multiplies. You think that you are powerless, but you are not. You are very powerful. You just need to take up the sword. You just need to take up the pen. You just need to take up the desire to be active and get out there and make things happen. Share these stories, things that are working for you. We want to hear from you implementing some of these strategies that we're going to talk about today. We want to hear from you. I'm going to jump through really quick before I start to add a little bit of my 2 cents to this. I will look at the chat really quick and see if I've missed anything that was said. Ross Hunter asked, wrote, Resurrection Hunter had a good video up on his webpage showing the opposition's bad vibes. I bet it did demonstrate quite a bit of the bad vibes. Hey, I see Jennifer P is here. Great to see you in the chat as well. Always love being surrounded by so many friends. Zen Zarsis, have you seen the documentary called Europa, The Last Battle? I have not. If you could write me at my website, reach out to me there, the contact tab, and let me know where I can find it. We have a question. Did you see the post about, I mentioned that earlier, the black press? Let's see. The chat is jumping around on me here. We also had some super chats, so let's make sure I get those. Sismic77 super chatting with $10. Thank you so very much. My wife is Chinese and I am Polish in America. I'm Polish in America. We both support whites. I don't care how many people make fun of us. These sneaky people will one day pay for their crime. Yes, indeed. You are welcome here as a supporter of white well-being, you and your wife. And I think we have exchanged messages before. Your wife is a ardent supporter of white well-being. This is a movement of redemption. If you took a non-white spouse and you have that from that point, at some point moving forward, came to white well-being, and you decide you want to support our people, you realize that we need Western kind to have Western civilization. Surely there are non-white people who come to that same conclusion. Your wife is a perfect example. There are others who realize that, yes, we want Western civilization, and we need white people to have Western civilization. To be for Western civilization but not white people is to be like being for the forest but not for the trees. There is no forest if there are no trees. We are needed. So I've met couples like you many a time in the cause, and everyone, as I say, and will continue to say, who supports white well-being is welcome here. What we're talking about, of course, is encouraging our young white children to take white mates, because the quickest way to effectuate white erasure is to convince whites to take non-white mates and miscegenate themselves out of existence. We can endure a lot as a people. We can endure privation. We can endure starvation. We can endure our civilization, our cities being incinerated. We can have everything destroyed that we've ever built. But if we remain, all of our works of art, our civilization, our engineering, our poetry, our prose, our music, all of that is still in here, because that's where it always was. It only is out there because we put it there. This is where it resides. So if we survive, then all of that can be made anew. All of that can be created again. This is the only thing that is necessary. If this goes, if our biospirit goes, then none of this will matter anymore. If they get rid of us, if the anti-whites were to be successful in getting rid of us, all of this civilization that they now treat as something that fell from the heavens and we somehow stole from them. There was a comment the other day of the white people have been on top of Western civilization long enough. It's time for others. As though we found it, or as though we stole it. It's time for others to be on top in our homes, the homes of our ancestors, the homes of our parents. This is ours, damn it. We're going to reassert our rights. We have a super chat by way of Daedalus digging down into the description, and I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce this. Perhaps I think this is a quote from something called Faluspa. If you have perhaps a pronunciation tip, you could jump into the super chat with that. The super chat came with $5. Thank you so much. And it reads thus: brothers will fight and kill each other. Sisters, children will defile kinship. It is harsh in the world, whoredom rife, an axe age, a sword age. Shields are riven, a wind age, a wolf age. Before the world goes headlong, no man will have mercy. I'm guessing that is some sort of prediction from some sort of perhaps holy book, some pagan holy book. I could be wrong. Correct me, whoever knows out there, what exactly or where that comes from. Ursa Major super chatting with $10. No white guilt. When this program has 100,000 participants, it won't be so easy for them to censor you. May that day come quickly. Amen. Thank you very much for that $10 investment in the cause of white well-being and all the good work we are doing here for our people. Folks, in the spirit of Ursa Major's super chat, let's quickly tweet, gab, post to friends, post to Facebook, Minds, and the like, and even our new Russian VK. If you are on that network, please post there and get folks to come in to the stream. Let's get it out to as many people as possible. I'm Opa. Super chats 99 cents. Doesn't write anything, but thank you very much for that super chat. I can assure you, every penny will go to a good cause. I had an anti-white super chat the other day, something like $4 some odd cents, just to say how much he or she or it disliked me. And I thought, what a fool. Every penny is going to go toward something that benefits our people. Ross Hunter writes in the chat, that's exactly why they want to get rid of us. And let's see what else we have here. Other comments in the chat, and then I will begin to give a little bit of structure to my comments and thoughts on rearing children to take our children to take white mates. American Krogan, this is what happened for my family and my mixed race grandniece. She doesn't look like us and appears alien. It's tragic. It is tragic. If you read my book, Born Guilty, in that book, you'll see that one of my closest friends in junior high school, which in this book is a story called Crucible. It is a true story about my time in junior high school, 11 to 13 years of age, roughly 7th and 8th grade. And one of my closest friends was a biracial boy, and half black, half white. And that friendship, he was also a family that I attended church with back then when I attended church. And you will find out how that relationship, by his volition, came to a tragic end, a betrayal that absolutely broke my heart. And if you are a feeling person, when you read it, will break yours as well. Roy Danton, a great hero in our community, super chatting $9.99. Even for me, as a white male who moved from one white nation to another while speaking both languages perfectly, I sometimes feel this rootlessness. And I have the shared ancestry of our people. So there you go, pointing out very eloquently, Roy, that when you have something as significant of a divide as a biospiritual difference with the community around you, it is something that is truly, and as is demonstrated throughout all of human history, an insurmountable challenge, that it always ends in a sanguinary conclusion as soon as more than one people end up with the courage to act out their biospirit. So what I refer to as numerical courage. So I will just say quickly, and I want to get Clarion's thoughts on this as we move through some of my thoughts on getting our children to take white mates. I think this begins at a very young age. With all of your education of our children, it begins at a very young age. How do you communicate things to children who are very young? Well, you do it with happy faces and happy sounds, and ugly faces and ugly sounds. That's not just for children who are not able to speak yet, but it is the same for children who are able to speak for the first so many years of their lives. You're not going to be able to build a complex argument for them and have them follow it. Don't try that. You're just fooling yourself if you think that you're going to be able to communicate anything substantive to them, anything lasting to them that way. You want to reach them in a way that they can understand. And that is happy faces, happy sounds for positive things you want to encourage. Ugly faces, ugly sounds for things you want to discourage. So when you see a lovely white couple with beautiful little white babies, you make happy face, happy sound. When you see mixed race couples, say in a magazine, and this is one way that I've talked with some mothers before, one way to introduce this to your children. And mothers out there, I've spoken with mothers who are in this situation. If you have husbands that are not necessarily on board with ensuring that your children grow up with a healthy view of themselves, a healthy view of our people and the like, one of the best things you can do, remember, first of all, that you are going to win when it comes to the children. If you're the mother, the hand that rocks the cradle is going to decide the next generation. Men that delude themselves with ideas that they're the ones who are really, you do very little compared to the woman who's going to be rocking the cradle. So women, you can pick up a magazine and you can use what the anti-whites are trying to do to the rest of us, to encourage us to take non-white mates, to erase us from civilization by way of miscegenation. You can take a magazine and you can flip through the magazine with the child. And when you come across these couples that are meant to convey the message that this is what you want to do as a young white person, you want to find a non-white mate so that you can be just like the person in this advert, You can use that opportunity to make the ugly face and the ugly sound. When you see the white couple, you can make the happy face and the happy sound, and that will communicate everything you want to communicate to the child. It's the same method that you use just instinctively. Somehow it just disappears from our heads, but it's the exact same message you use instinctively when maybe there's a piece of food that has fallen on the ground and you don't want the child to eat it. You don't say, "Oh, that's great." You make an ugly face and an ugly sound to teach the child, no, no, this is something that you don't want to eat, something that you don't want to consume. When it comes to these magazines or TV commercials or what have you, this is something, a behavior that you don't want to consume. Does that make sense, everyone? Clarion, do you have any thoughts on that? Because I'm going to jot down these super chats and then I'll get to them.
I think that, first of all, I'll say personally, I was not, nor was my husband, we had not even begun to go free when our children were that little. So I don't have any personal experience with raising racially conscious children who are that young. But I will say that having white baby dolls, I don't think that that can be overstated how important it is for little children to have, little girls to have white baby dolls and to not have non-white baby dolls. There's been a lot of research about that, but I know I had a lot of, interestingly enough, I loved baby dolls when I was a child, and interestingly enough, I was given a lot of non-white baby dolls. So, I mean, it's just I'm just thinking back to being a little girl with my little non-white baby dolls everywhere with me, going to the grocery store and buckling them into a seatbelt and doing all the things that good mommies do to my little black baby doll, or my I had a little Indian baby doll. But I think that just setting up, it's in vogue. It's in vogue. I see it all the time. Non-white baby dolls being given to little white girls, and I think that those should be dismissed from the household.
That is absolutely, I cannot tell. Thank God you are here. Of course, I would have no way of knowing that. That is absolutely despicable. You're training your white daughters to have
Yes.
non-white babies.
Yes, exactly. And it is insidious. It's also quite interesting. This is a can I have a little tiny tangent here
Yeah,
away from
yeah,
the
go ahead, go for it.
I will say that for people who are in circles with children who have baby dolls, okay, this is a great way for you to talk to normies. This is a really great framing tool for especially for women who are white positive women who are in normie circles, because non-white baby dolls are huge in white circles, especially with the evangelical Christian set. Okay, so this is who I'm thinking about,
Oh my God.
because I'm always thinking about how to frame things properly for normies so that they will listen to you. And an example that I had was, this must have been maybe like 4 years ago. I know a white woman who has adopted a non-white child.
Mm.
And she was talking about, the mom and I were talking about a situation where her non-white child had been given a baby doll who looked just like her, and how wonderful this was. I will also say
Mm.
that, like, over 20 years ago, Oprah Winfrey made a big deal about going to South Africa with or excuse me, not South Africa. I'm used to saying South Africa, some sub-Saharan African country that she was going to do some kind of humanitarian effort. And she was so excited. Oprah Winfrey was so excited to bring bins and bins and bins and bins of black baby dolls to give to the black children in this outreach program she was doing. So non-white people are very keyed into the idea of giving their children dolls that, quote, look like them. And so this white mother who had adopted a non-white child was excited because she had been able to find a doll that was the race of her adopted daughter is not Black. So non-Black, non-white baby dolls are hard to find. So she was excited about finding this baby doll and had kind of an issue with the mother-in-law who was going to be providing that pretty expensive baby doll as a birthday present. She was kind of complaining about the mother-in-law's problem of, the big price tag for this baby doll.
Mm.
And so I was the person who was listening to the vent, right? That my mother-in-law won't fork over the massive amount of cash for this doll, right? And so she said, "Don't you see what I'm saying?" And so this is me to enter to say, "Yes, I think that your mother-in-law should fork over a massive amount of money for this toy," right? That was supposed to be my role.
Mm.
And what I said was, I think it's really important that children have baby dolls that look like them. And that's why my children have always had white baby dolls. And I saw this, like, the conversation just it was kind of like that scratching record moment, like, like,
I bet.
and she just kind of looked at me in this shocked kind of way because white people are not supposed, I'm talking to a white woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
White people are not supposed to also be looking for dolls that, quote, look like their children, right? That's only something that non-white people are supposed to do. This is only something that Oprah Winfrey should be crowing about 20 years ago, or what this woman should be trying to do for this adopted child that she now has. So it is because it is such a fad for non-white baby dolls to be given to white children. Like, if I had to now, I would say, like, oh, I think it's important that my children play with baby dolls who look like them. So thanks, but we can't accept this baby doll. Happy birthday, kind of a thing.
Mm.
I have refused toys. So I'm not speaking out of turn that I wouldn't do that. I have refused toys from family members at birthday parties because they did not reflect our values. But the non-white baby doll, white children need white baby dolls, and white women need to start speaking that to other white women, because it is shocking and it shouldn't be shocking. And once you shock somebody into thinking in a way that is not the way that they've been thinking, they will start thinking that way. This is how you reach the normies, is by giving them the proper framework. I don't, that particular woman, I have no idea what that may or may not have done to her, because she has made these decisions to have this, like, multiracial family. This is a decision that she made.
Mm-hmm.
But to other women who have white children, give them a baby doll. Like, I think it's important that your daughter have this baby doll that looks just like them.
Right. That's a fantastic point. And yeah, the messaging of excuse me, of that is just absolutely, as you said, it's insidious and anti-white as all hell to give a white little girl a non-white baby doll, because it is absolutely instructing them to have non-white babies in the future. Disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
If we could not, if not even a fraction of the sort of things that are done to us by anti-whites could we do without getting charged with being Lucifer. I mean, it's so outrageous. Let me read a couple of these super chats and question statements we've had over the past few minutes. I'm Opa, super chatting $19.99. Thank you very much for that. Grand super chat, writing, another viewer in an interracial marriage. I, however, am in the tragic position of wanting to end the marriage after becoming red-pilled. It is the worst thing I have ever had to contemplate. The thought enervates me daily. That is that really hurts my heart to hear that you are in that situation. I am assuming from what you wrote that by saying another viewer in an interracial marriage that you are in one, and I'm assuming that your spouse does not support white well-being, unlike the other super chatter in our community. And that would be whether white or whether non-white or white. I mean, that's a decision that you have to make as an adult. If you've married someone and you have started going free, you see the importance of it. You see that really the only thing that can make a claim to your life is the biospirit that gave you life, and that you are dedicating yourself to that, to white well-being, and that your spouse is not just going to neutrally sit by the side, but actively oppose you, be anti-white, especially if you're raising children. Whether that spouse is white or non-white doesn't matter. That is a difficult decision, and my heart goes out to you. You have to do the right thing. This is, and I said on another show maybe 2 months ago, that it is worse having an anti-white in the house with children, or being in a relationship with an anti-white is worse than being in a relationship with an alcoholic. It's worse than being in a relationship with a drug addict. You cannot allow these people around. They're going to be bad energy for you. They're going to pull you down. They're going to pull down your efforts for white well-being. And if you have children in their midst and they are actively infecting them with mean pathogens as an anti-white, your decision should be as easy as a decision if the spouse was a drug abuser and beating the children and bringing drug clients and drug dealers into the home. It should be easier than that to come to your conclusion. I understand it's much better to have both of the biological parents or believed to be biological parents in the way of adopted children with the children, and that's optimal. That's where you want to be. But there are cases where you are so suboptimal that there is more harm being done by having this person around than by getting rid of that person. So my heart goes out to you. I feel terrible that you're having to deal with that. And for everyone else out there who is in such a situation, it is extremely difficult. Bill Horace, super chatting with $5, writes, Jason, there was a Senator Bilbo who said what you said about redeeming our white nations, if not destroyed by miscegenation. I'll have to look into old Senator Bilbo. Then we have John Henney, super chatting with $2. Save our European culture. Amen. Thank you. Thank the three of you for your super chats very much. And I think we just had another one come in, but we have some comments. Jesse writing, you guys are great. Hail NWG. Well, hail in return, Jesse. Thank you for being here. Germanic, Celtic, Gothic writes, brilliant idea, brother. Perhaps that was in reference to making the ugly faces and sounds, happy faces and sounds. Monaco writing, no white guilt. Have you seen the latest Rammstein video, Deutschland? It visits several time periods of German history. Germania is a black woman. The lyrics are about not being able to love Germany. That is disgusting, and I have not seen that. Saint Stringfellow writes, no white guilt. As parents, our primary protective method is to control what our children view. Amen to that. We don't watch TV or listen to the radio. Movies are strictly selected. Mine are 7, 6, 10 months and a bump up. Amen to you. Thank you very much for bringing those beautiful white babies in the world and doing all that you can to rear them in love and respect for our people, history, and destiny. American Krogan writing, no white guilt. Video games today are pushing feminism to such an extreme that it is feminizing boys and making them unattractive to white women. I don't doubt it, ladies and gentlemen. Keep your children away from these anti-white video games that are turning our little boys into something more like little girls. They need to look up to the heroes, as I did. What made me a man? I mean, I had my father. You can read a little bit about him in my book, Born Guilty, who was a great role model as a man, as masculine. But you should direct your sons' energies, their hopes and dreams to imitate, even emulate our greatest heroes, our warriors, our thinkers. Those are the men they should look to imitate, not some weakling, effeminized creature in a video game or on a children's television show. Looks like I'm 160 B super chats, $10 Australian. Children are what we fight for. In defeat, you can rebuild. but you lose when your lineage is destroyed. Love your message, Jason. Thank you. Thank you all the way around the planet in Australia for that super chat and your very kind words. And we have Sin526, a notable, well-known person in our community, back always. Nothing to say, just take my money, he writes. $5. Thank you so much, Sin526. And it looks like Roy Danton is back again, was working out earlier on and wanted to say about Jared Taylor that it's really a shame that such a great man gets treated like a criminal. I couldn't say it better myself, good friend. It is absolutely a disgrace and a great example, a perfect example of what is happening, who is in charge. And now we have to ask ourselves, how do we take back our destiny? No more trying to dissect the problem, folks. We know what it is. We know the anti-whites are in charge. It's time to recapture our destiny. So I'm going to move through this. We have to show our daughters pictures. This is another one of my recommendations when it comes for teaching your young children. Now, this is a little older. You can, once you've moved beyond the sounds and the faces of happy sounds and ugly sounds, happy faces, ugly faces, you can show your white daughters images from magazines that you can get at the grocery store or what have you, of handsome white men, maybe a model for a suit or something like this, and say to her, wouldn't you love to marry a man like him that looks like this and produce beautiful white children? You can do the exact same thing for your sons, ladies and gentlemen. Pick up the same magazine, white model, white female model. Perhaps she's modeling a dress or something of this nature, and you can say, wouldn't you want to marry a beautiful woman like this and have beautiful little white children? Point out the characteristics of these models. What makes them so beautiful? What makes our people so beautiful? Point out the cheekbones, the eyes, the eye colors, the shape of the nose, the shape of the lips, the forehead. Point to the hair colors, the differences in the hair colors. Talk to your children about how lovely our people are. Talk about all the different ways that we are lovely. The differences in our skin tones, all the way to fair, to all the way to the tannest colors of our race. Point out all of these lovely traits of our people to your children. Focus on those things when you talk about, wouldn't you want to have a lovely man like this? Wouldn't you want to have a lovely woman like this as your spouse? So that they will end up focusing on those things, which, folks, they will not find in the other races of man. Your children are being propagandized. I mentioned that earlier, so you're going to want to talk about this regularly with your children. Even though we had the great comment by St. Stringfellow talking about controlling what they see, there will come a time. In fact, Clarion was talking about it last time when they were walking down the street somewhere and there were big posters of these non-white or these mixed race couples in the windows. And you're going to have to deal with that. They're going to be seeing these things when they're out in the world. You're going to want to be on top of it. You're going to want to be ahead of it. And you're going to want to address it when it shows up. Now, we can use the word Western with more meaning and with more legitimacy than the Jews use the word kosher. Jews very often will talk to their children about only marrying Jews, and they use a very specific language when they talk about this, vectoring their children to other Jews for marriage. One of the words they'll use is when they talk about non-Jews, they'll say, oh, he's not kosher. That girl's not kosher. That guy's not, don't even consider him, that he's not kosher. You can say the same thing with Western. There is only one Western kind. There is only one Western civilization. It comes from us. So you can use Western in the exact same way that Jews use the word kosher. You can see if you have children that are a little older now, and they see say a man on a date with a non-white woman, you could take the opportunity to say to your child, he would be much better off with a Western woman. The exact same way Jews have preserved themselves in the bodies of other people by saying he would be much better off with a girl who was kosher. You see a white woman married to a non-white man, you can say to your child, she would be much better off with a Western man. And doesn't that just have a beautiful ring to it? What does that mean? Well, that leads me into the next and extremely important point about rearing your children, and that is that you have to teach them about the glory and the dignity of our people. If they believe that they have something to perpetuate, that there is something grand and heroic and magical about who we are and what we come from, and have created all of our accomplishments, that will be something that they instinctively want to preserve. That will be something that, even without the other training, they will know that these are traits that I want to pass on, that I'm a link in a chain, that it is my duty, and that I want to continue that story, that a story of which I am a part, a grand and heroic and glorious tale of which I play a role, and in which I will produce some measure of glory in the future. I do want to read, though, a passage from my book, Born Guilty, that I printed out just for this purpose. And I spoke to it earlier about Althea talking about the 9 words. So I will read this to you all quickly. This is from Born Guilty, my book that you can see back here barely behind the mic arm. I use Westman, as in man, Westmen, as in men, and Western kind for whites and for white people in general. The word white is fine in a supportive role, but by itself, it's lacking. The masses see it as little more than a skin color. They rarely connect it to the high culture of philosophy, science, art, learning, and civilization that are the biospiritual expressions of Western kind, expressions that are essential to our well-being. Just like the Jews are a people, Western kind is a people. Just like the Jews live in many countries, Western kind lives in many countries. Just like the Jews practice religions, agnosticism and atheism, Western kind practices religions, agnosticism and atheism. But unlike the Jews, who are diverse in their opinions but undivided when it comes to the preservation and mastery of their people and ethnic identity, most of Western kind rejects its identity and consecrates its dissolution, consecrates white erasure. Part of the reason for this pathology is that we see ourselves as a color rather than a people. We have many traits beyond white that unite us, not the least of which is our cultural focus on individual freedom versus the power of the state, as well as our healthy distrust of government, which isn't shared to any significant degree by any other culture in the world. It is uniquely Western, uniquely us. Even if there weren't any differences at birth between us and other peoples, no other people can properly call themselves Western. Being Western isn't something you can become in a handful of generations, let alone a single lifetime. It requires nearly 3,000 years of marination in the genius, courage, blood, and tears of countless lives sacrificed in the struggle for freedom over tyranny, for reason, evidence, logic, and empiricism over mysticism. The Jews discourage their children from marrying non-Jews by saying non-Jews aren't kosher. We can say with deeper, richer, and more substantive meaning that we shouldn't marry anyone who isn't Western. Unfortunately, some of our people are slipping back into mysticism and the irrationality of unfalsifiable claims because of anti-white propaganda and exposure to non-white cultures. They're sliding down the ladder, losing in a few generations the pinnacle of human development that we have achieved. From Socrates to Aristotle and other Greek philosophers, to scholasticism, the Enlightenment and Renaissance, the scientific and industrial revolutions, secularism, and more. We are more than white. We are Westmen, members of Western kind, a manifold people united by a single spirit. And because Althea came up with this idea, which I think is quite brilliant, the 9 words, which are 9 words contained within a quote of mine that is in Born Guilty. I will read the totality of the quote and then the 9 words alone. I think it's something that we should share and we should pass along to our children. It's something that we should start talking about, the 9 words, because it will help to deprogram our people, to cure them of these infections of anti-whiteism. The quote is, enslaved by those proclaiming themselves emancipators, exploited by those calling themselves liberators, ours is an extraordinary oppression because we are named oppressor at birth, an egregious persecution because we are named persecutor at birth. Ours is a tormentor that justifies escalating cruelty by merely invoking our names. Ours is an inescapable affliction because atonement cannot be made for a grievance never committed, nor will peace ever be made with one so named at birth. So the 9 words from there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, are atonement cannot be made for a grievance never committed. The 9 words, folks. Atonement cannot be made for a grievance never committed. I first said that in junior high school when I was talking about, to a group of my friends, when I was talking about how we are slated as the bad guys in the anti-white narrative. And there is nothing we can do, since we were not the ones that committed these so-called crimes against the non-whites. There was nothing that we could do to atone for them. It is a character role. We are in a role as the bad guys, and nothing will change in this story for us, ever. We can follow it all the way to the end, into our dissolution, and it will lead merely to that perdition. We must get off of these pages into a book with brand new blank pages for us to write our own story. That is something that we need to pass around. Atonement cannot be made for a grievance never committed. Before I continue with this and we get close to wrapping up here, Clarion, do you have any thoughts on anything I just said, or perhaps the new 9 words that I've just shared?
I think that the 9 words that you just shared are a perfect summary of what we need to say when people try to white guilt us. That it needs to be something that we hold and it just rolls right off our tongue. You know what I'm saying? Like it just is like a tactical framework. Isn't that what you call it? Mm-hmm. Like that's what we need to say. I'm not sure if how I go about doing this is the best way to do it, but it's the way that I do it because it's my personality. I don't spend a lot of time arguing with people who hate us, right? I will say like one thing and that will be enough. And so if somebody wants to try to white guilt me, all I have to say is atonement cannot be made for a grievance never committed. And then I'm done. You know, like that's kind of how I work. I spend my time building up our people. I don't spend a lot of time arguing with people who will always want to tear us down. They never argue in good faith. They're not interested in helping us. They're interested in hurting us because they think that hurting us helps them. So I just don't. And I love the idea of having 9 simple words. Next.
Yeah, exactly. It was a brilliant idea she had. When she said it, I just thought, my God, that's fantastic. Exactly. Every way that they try to, pardon me, it's the white guilting is such an enormous element of the white noir that we experience. And exactly as you say, Clarion, that is what they're trying to do when they come at you with, let me count all the ways that you people are evil and you have to make amends. That is what they're trying to do. They're trying to white guilt you so you can break out the 9 words every single time to defeat that, to defeat those attacks. So well said. We have White Baron had a message, said left-handed master race confirmed. Is that from me holding the pen? I am ambidextrous. So I don't know. Is that ambidextrous nationalism confirmed? Ziggy Wolf super chatting 20 Norwegian krona. Protesting Islam next week. Here, go buy a banner. I don't know if 20 Norwegian krona will buy me a banner in the States, but I can have a look. Sizzy Mick 77, $10 super chat. I'm Polish. We immigrated to the U.S. in 1989. I always felt inferior to real white Americans. Really, as a Pole. Fast forward 30 years, and I have a Chinese wife, and we live in a clown world that's anti-white. Yeah, isn't it a shock? You married a non-white woman. Now you and your non-white wife are both supporters of white well-being, and you're surrounded by whites and non-whites who are anti-white. It is a clown world. I would love to be a fly on the wall of a conversation with your Chinese wife, maybe setting some white anti-white straight on on white well-being. Wouldn't that be something? If that ever happens, somebody better get to me with the video of that. Make sure you get a video of that, brother. Get your wife in an argument with some white anti-white. I'd love to see them. I'd love to see them cower under a non-white woman correcting them for being anti-white. How do you teach your children to take a white mate? You talk about, as I was saying a moment ago, our glorious history. You teach them, and this is the other side of that. Teach them about their glorious history. Teach them about, and there's so much. This was one of the things that really struck me when I decided to dedicate my life to serving white well-being. Up until that point, I had I guess the general pride of an American, the general pride of a Southerner, because I was born and reared in Virginia and saw myself as a Southerner, proud of that state. It was a general sort of a pride. But once I dedicated myself to our people, to our well-being, I realized, my God, all of the glorious history of our race is mine to take pride in. You can do that for your children. Every castle that's ever been built, every symphony ever played, every battle ever fought, every glorious invention, every disease cured. It doesn't matter what the nationality of the white person was. It doesn't matter what language they spoke. They are members of Western kind, and you can take pride in all of that, because all of that is in you, and it is in your white children, in your white babies. Think of how much pride you can instill in them by showing them that glorious history and teaching them that glorious history. They will want to continue that. Trust me, unless they are otherwise malfunctioning, that'll be something that they want to carry on. The other side of that is to teach them that there is no act more shameful than to inflict harm on our people. There is no act more shameful. You want to teach your children that from very early in life. It's one of the secrets of the Jewish community, by the way, is to teach the children that there is nothing more shameful than to harm a fellow Jew. You want to teach your white babies that there is nothing more shameful than to harm a fellow white person. If our people held that belief, how impossible would it have been for any anti-whites of any other stripes to come in and convince some of our people to go along with these ideas for their own personal enrichment? If that would have been the moral code of our people, none of this could have happened. Teach your children that there is nothing more shameful than to bring harm to a fellow white person. Of course, anti-white white people are excluded from that because they are inflicting harm on us. They have made themselves our victimizers. And so you can defend yourself against a victimizer. Marrying a non-white person is one of, and marrying a non-white person is one of the ways that you can and do inflict harm on our people. You do that, you inflict harm on our people several ways. So you teach your children, this is now for older children, they're able to comprehend these arguments. You teach them that it is the most shameful act in the world to bring harm to our people, especially our people as a victimized people. How much more victimization does a victimized people need? you're going to pile on top. You're going to add some more harm to what is already being done. Taking a non-white person as mate and reproducing or not reproducing with them inflicts harm on our people. How does it do that? One of the first ways it does that is that it normalizes the act of miscegenation. So remember, I said this, I think it was the last stream and maybe the stream before. If you live by the dictates of anti-whiteism, you reinforce the anti-white narrative. You reinforce anti-whiteism. You have to object to every aspect of anti-whiteism to be and serve white well-being, to be an advocate for our people. You cannot live by any of the dictates of anti-whiteism. So to take a non-white partner, even with the excuse that maybe you won't produce children, or maybe you're barren and can't produce children, to supposedly care about white well-being and then take a non-white spouse after that realization, after that epiphany and dedication has come to you, is to live by the dictates of anti-whiteism and normalize the process of miscegenation. In almost 100% of cases, these people are going to produce children. The production of mixed-race children is white erasure. That's the bottom line. It results in the end of our people. If we were all to start, a majority of us were to start doing taking these spouses and reproducing with them, it would rapidly be the end of our people. Obviously, it is to inflict harm, and it is anti-white. What does it do for those in your family when you take a non-white spouse? What does that do for them? That is going to make it very difficult for them to serve white well-being and stay in a relationship with you and the non-white spouse. They are going to have to accommodate you and your decision and make your non-white spouse feel comfortable in your family. So they're not going to be able to serve white well-being. So you're also undermining the white well-being, the service to the white well-being that your family members could be doing by taking a non-white spouse. Older children can understand these concepts. Older children can understand exactly what Clarion was talking about how their lives, the lives of the children they produce are going to be harder. But it is one of those, that argument about it's a reality. Make no mistake that the lives for these mixed race children are going to be more difficult. And just as an aside, I want to point out that if there was such a thing as white privilege, which of course is just an anti-white meme pathogen, just a superstition, but if there was such a thing, all of these mixed race children would be fighting to be classified as white because they would want some of that privilege. But no, they fight to be classified as non-white. Even our last president fought to be classified as non-white. They all fight to be classified as non-white. Why? Because if you're a white person, you are considered persona non grata. You are part of an evil group. You have an evil heritage. But if you are non-white, well, then you have access to all of these special programs, all these special privileges. You can't do any wrong. You are endlessly owed by the white majority. So, of course, they're choosing the non-white identity in all of these cases, or 99.9% of these cases. I know that there are some out there, there are some supporters of white well-being who are half non-white and who have decided to identify as white and will serve white well-being. And I encourage that and welcome them to be a part of this community. But in nearly all cases, they are going to identify as non-white. They end up having lives, as Clarion was mentioning, that are much conflicted and much more difficult to live as a consequence. So you normalize miscegenation by taking a non-white mate as a partner. You make it difficult, as I said, for members of your family of origin to serve the white positive sphere, and thereby you also, just as an additional, not only do you deprive the cause of white well-being of someone who may have served for us and our well-being, but you also thereby enable our victimizers to be that much stronger. We have one fewer individual holding a shield on the wall for our defense because you were so selfish. You decided to bring a non-white into the family, and now this person is compromised. They cannot come to our aid in order to keep you as a brother or sister in their lives. So I know that some of you have already experienced some of this difficulty. I don't know, Clarion, do you have any other stories of people that you've talked to that have experienced such situations in their lives that now they're compromised and they simply can't participate because their brother or their sister is married to a non-white, and they bring over their mixed race children, and how do they teach their children to both love the mixed race cousins, but at the same time love their Western identity?
Yes, the short answer is yes. Somebody super chatted earlier about being married to somebody who's non-white and then becoming red pilled, and the difficulty that has created for him. I have a friend in the same situation, and it is a hardship for him. And I know a couple of people who are in a similar situation, and they just have a lot of guilt, and a lot of personal internal conflict. It's a terrible situation. There's really, as terrible as somebody can imagine the situation to be, that's as terrible as the situation is. It's just, and it's all been done to us, right? It's, I was having it is a terrible situation. I'll just say that. And I have a lot of feeling for them. It's a situation that you are very blessed to have, despite the hardships that we're going through now. Say anybody who's in the chat right now who's red pilled, right? We all understand the hardships of being red pilled, right? But the hardship of being blue pilled is far worse, right? Like we didn't understand what a terrible thing and abuse was being heaped on us day in and day out, right? Blue pilled. You broke that conditioning when you were really quite young, right? But there are so many of us who thankfully were able to start going free, but only as adults. And, I have like kind of a hallmark statement that I think so many times a day, because it really, as we've talked about, this movement is a movement of redemption. We all we've all been victimized in some way or another, and we all need to be redeemed from modernity in some way or another. And it is heartbreaking that some of the injury of modernity that has been done to people is not redeemable. Because they have multiracial children now, or because they're in a multiracial family now, or those things can't be undone, right? That's what I mean by unredeemed. You cannot be redeemed from that, because it is the material reality that you live now, right? And so we had the man with the super chat who just feels terrible, and I personally know people who are in similar situations as that. And you broke out quite young. I look and I see it really as just a grace and a blessing that I'm married to 100% European man, because I was definitely inculcated with the, races irrelevant, we're all pink on the inside, whatever we're fed a steady diet of. I would have married somebody who wasn't white, and then to think of the tragedy of being who I am now, and knowing what I had done to multiracial children, that I had, created these sorrows from my own. Understanding that we've all been victimized by the lie, but still, you have that significant guilt. It's terrible. I do see it. I don't know what to do about it, because it's just so much injury has been done to us with the lies.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't heal because what has been done to you is now irreparable.
Yeah, it does. It does. We had, I think, Ross in the chat said makes family gatherings very difficult. Of course it would to be in that sort of environment. We have some more comments before we wrap up here and get final thoughts. Let's see. Christopher writes, quote, "You're not allowed to take pride in something you did not personally do," end quote. How would you respond, Jason? I would ask the person, why are you trying to deny me a people? I would ask that person why they are so anti-white. And I know where that anti-white statement comes from. It comes from that little weasel-looking character. What's his name? He wants the white race to be individuals and to be rootless automatons. And you know, in a world of these mass movements, these groups of non-whites, you as an individual are crushed. And it's Jordan Peterson. That's what the little weasel is. Jordan Peterson wants you to be an individual. You should ask him why he's so anti-white, that he wants the white race, because it's only white people. What are his audiences? 95% white. It's whites that he is speaking to, and he's telling them to be individuals. That's what he's saying. You can't take pride in the achievements of your people because you're not allowed to have a people, white race. So why is he so anti-white? Why is he such a dirtbag? That's what I would ask of that little weasel. Why is he such a dirtbag that he denies me a people? But it's okay for I understand he's actually an honorary member of some American Indian tribe up there, and he collects their works of art or what have you. So it's okay for them to be a people, but not you, white man. So people are seeing what he's up to. He's also made himself very wealthy off a lot of white people who thought that he was going to be somehow their salvation by him telling you to write down your past as you would have liked it to be, and then write down your future as you'd like it to be, as though that's going to do anything at all. I mean, just another guru that has fleeced the population and is happily on his way to his vacations and everything else and his awards from the regime. So that's what I would ask, why he's so anti-white. There's the Ross Hunter's comment. We have New Cloud Stalker super chatting with 100 Danish krona. Speaking of white erasure, have you taken a look at the white genocide conspiracy theory Wikipedia page? It's a travesty, to say the least. Your stream is always edifying. Thanks. Well, thank you very much for the super chat, investment in white well-being, and for telling us about this Wikipedia page. I have not heard of it. I would advise everyone to not. I see what CX of Beleg asking, does anybody know my ancestry? Well, my ancestry is predominantly German, English, and Scandinavian, and there is a decent amount of French, Central European, a tiny bit of Eastern European, a tiny bit of Russian, and a very tiny bit of Southern European. That is my ancestry. Let's see. Laurel asking everybody to smash the like button. Thank you very much for that, Laurel. Let's see. What else do we have here? I don't see any more comments. If anybody has anything to add, looks like we just received a super chat from Chuck Ford, super chatting with $4. Thank you very much, good sir. Hey, Jason, I appreciate your message as usual. Well, I appreciate you, my good friend, as usual. Let's see. There's one other source where people might have sent some messages. Let's see. None are there, but I did want to mention, so I'm happy I jumped over there, that the last time we were live streaming Going Free, DB Cooper had super chatted on that alternative format for super chatting. $6. Thank you very much, DB. Sorry I didn't see it during the actual stream. And he wrote folk tithe. Thank you very much for that $6 folk tithe. Good sir. The final thing I will say about raising your children to take white mates is to teach them. And this goes along with earlier what we were saying, that you want to teach them that there is no greater shame than to inflict harm on our people. The other side of that coin is to teach them that there is nothing more virtuous than to serve white well-being. And one of the greatest things that you can do to serve white well-being is to find yourself a lovely man or a lovely woman and have a beautiful white family, beautiful white babies, and to rear them in love for our people, pride in our accomplishments, and a work ethic that will bring hope to our future and a recapturing of our destiny. That is the other side to the coin, folks. Teach our people, teach our children that that is the greatest virtue. And my friends, they will choose, and they will choose wisely, white men and white women as their partners. And not just white men and white women as their partners, but they will choose partners the way they should be chosen, which is to produce good, strong, healthy white families, because that is the basis of our communities, and our communities are the basis of our nation. I want to thank you all for being here. We have Sibats super chatting $2. Keep the alt-right strong. Thank you very much for that super chat. Thank you for showing up here right at the end of the stream. We always have good people coming in at the end, I've noticed. I want to get Clarion's final thoughts and any comments about what they are working on next over on her Facebook page.
I guess my final thought would be it almost speaks to the man who asked, what do you say when somebody says, how can you take pride in what it is that you haven't done? I think that that's one of the major components of raising children to be white positive, and that is to teach them, like you said, that the most virtuous thing that you can do is benefit our people. A facet of that is to teach them all of the virtues of the benefits that our ancestors have provided for us. We have a significant, it's significant in our family that we speak a lot about not being proud of our people and being proud of our ancestors, but being grateful to them. And that honoring the sacrifices that they've made, especially because we're in the States, all of the national holidays, the American national holidays, we always focus on the hardships that our people, you know, from before the Pilgrims forward, the hardships of our people in crafting and hewing this nation out of the wilderness and the swamps and the mountains and the plains, and that we are grateful for what they have done and the greatness of what they have done, and that the best way to honor that is to understand that we are only a moment in the process of our people, and that our people will continue beyond us, and that we're here because of the sacrifices of our ancestors, and that we cannot do anything in this moment to undo the sacrifices, the blood and the tears and the death. You know, they lived hard and died hard for us to be here, and that we need to continue that and not do anything that is selfish. For instance, marrying a non-white person and breaking our people's lineage. That is one of the most selfish things that we could do, because we need to look forward and to look back. So that's I wanted to add that, to honor our ancestors, that we have to continue our lineage as our ancestors did before us. I don't know what we're going to do on the Facebook page. I will let you know. I'm due to talk to my partner tonight. It's late here. My bedtime is like an hour ago. This is difficult.
She's sacrificing for us, folks.
You know, if we could live stream at like 5 a.m., that would be. I'm a lot more keen-minded at 5 a.m. than I am at 10 p.m. But so I will let you know. This has been a great talk. It's so edifying to everybody to know that we hold the keys to the future by how we raise up our children. It's a phenomenal opportunity.
Precisely. Thank you very much for being here, Clarion, and we're definitely going to have you back many more times. We'll try to get one of those 5 a.m. streams so we can get you on the top of your game.
I don't know how popular the 5 a.m. stream would be.
It would be popular somewhere. It would be noon somewhere, so it would be just right.
There you go.
We have El Guero super chatting $5. Thank you very much. Not able to catch you live often, but truly appreciate your work. I thank you very much for that sentiment. I thank you for taking the time to reach out with that super chat to let me know that you support what I'm doing. Folks, final thing I'll say on this whole, because it just is actually a kind of a big point here, this idea about taking pride in our ancestors. I will just tell you this from experience. When I go into any task, I remind myself, or I am reminded, that I am a member of a great and glorious, heroic people, champions of doctors and philosophers, healers, warriors, astronauts, scientists, builders of rockets, inventors of almost all that is in the world, discoverers of almost all that is in the world. I remind myself that that blood runs in my veins, that spirit burns bright as the sun in my heart. And I am able, because of it, to conquer anything that is in front of me. So if you want for a moment to believe for yourself that you don't need to take pride in our history, that it's going to be just on you and your petty little accomplishments in life from which you derive your strength and your energy to take on the next challenges, you are being a fool. All of the glory that is in the West is in me. All of the glory that is in the West is in you. Let that fire you. Let that drive you over the next hill. Let that inflame your passion so that you can conquer the hurdles that the enemy has lain before us, so that you can conquer the mountains. It is their voices that I hear in my ears, those of our heroes, those of our ancestors that say, one more step, Jason. You can take it. You can take it another yard. You can take it another mile, because we did it before you, and you can stand on our shoulders. I will be there for our descendants. Will you? Let's go free.